Chapter 1741. The land of the immortal continent was vast and prosperous. It was full of outstanding people and spiritual energy. It could be said that this was the most prosperous continent in the undying celestial domain. It was a magnificent sight to behold. The moment Su Yin landed on the immortal continent, he vaguely sensed something. His deep eyes looked into the distant sky, and it was as if he could see the great firmament world stretching and expanding. It was as if it was about to crack open. This change was very subtle. It was difficult to see the exact change. He could only sense it vaguely. Su Yan's primordial spirit was exceptionally strong. He could sense the changes in the land of the immortal continent. He could even feel waves of majestic heavens spreading towards the land of the immortal continent. Su Yan was moved. He could vaguely see that the land of the immortal continent would be much more magnificent in the future. Soon, he understood that this was the collapse of the seal of the Emperor Road. At the same time, the undying celestial domain was evolving towards its prehistoric state. Of course, this process will be very slow. There is no hope of returning to its prehistoric state. After all, the burial lands had experienced bloody changes. It took time for the undying celestial domain to form. However, it was too difficult to return to the state of the human world. There was no hope at all. It had to be said that the current undying celestial domain was equivalent to the self-sealed Xianwang universe. This was also due to the seal of the Emperor Road. Now that the seal of the Emperor Road had disappeared, what came next was the Black Calamity. He had a feeling that this day was getting closer. Although it was hard to say, it would not be more than 10,000 years. The universe is evolving, or rather, it is the evolution of the Tao of heaven and earth. The environment for growth will be more advanced. Daozu will be stronger. Su Yin thought to himself. His eyes looked across the land of the immortal continent. Finally, his gaze landed on a majestic immortal city. This city was also the most prosperous city in the undying celestial domain. This was not only the ancient city of the Xian people, it was also a corner of the ancestral land of the Xian people. Su Yin vaguely sensed that there was a blurry great world behind the immortal city. The current immortal city was not peaceful. The city was in chaos. The death of the immortal tribe's sect master and Xian Tianrong had caused a huge commotion. Some of the external forces in the city had left one after another, which had infuriated the higher-ups of the immortal tribe. Su Yin, this clown, does he still have the guts to attack my immortal tribe? The group of old freaks were about to go crazy. A large number of forces withdrew from the Xian people. This was because they did not trust the ability of the Xian people. At the same time, they were worried that Su Xianren would come to kill them. After all, the Daozu of the Xian people had been killed. The situation of the battle had progressed to the climax. The Xian people viewed the retreat of this kind of power as a disgrace. A group of old freaks went berserk within the city. Their eyes were red, and some of the pro-war factions had already stepped forward. They wanted to reorganize their troops and charge out to kill Su Yan. The Xian people's foundation was extraordinary. They had many great killing machines in their ancestral land. Even the Daozu, who was sleeping in the ancestral court, came out frequently. All of them were seething with anger. When had the Xian people ever suffered such humiliation? 2 disciples of the primogeniture had died in battle. This was a great loss to the race, and also a great humiliation. The entire race was filled with killing intent. A tragic aura leaked out, and the experts were howling in grief and hatred. No one had expected that under such circumstances, Su Yin would dare to make a move in the undying heavenly domain and kill the Xian people's sect leader. Xian Tianrong's death was not a big deal, but the death of the Xian people's sect leader was the greatest humiliation for the race. Dong, dong, dong. On this day, a huge immortal bell rose from the peak of the immortal city, emitting resplendent immortal radiance. The entire immortal continent was illuminated by its radiance. One after another, the old monsters of the Xian people stood out and resonated with the bell, striking it. This silent immortal bell was revived. The bell waves rolled, accompanied by the supreme light of order. In an instant, it swept across the Cien people and continued to spread. Finally, it surged to the four great continents, forming the image of the four seas shaking. Who's ringing the bell? Some of the immortal sects were shocked. They looked in the direction of the Cien people and saw the huge immortal bell spinning in the sky. This bell was very powerful. It was a terrifying Daozu weapon and was one of the 10 greatest treasures of the Cien people. Could Su Yin really be attacking the Cien people? It was a shocking scene. Otherwise, the Cien people wouldn't have rung the bell rashly. This was equivalent to announcing to the world. However, what happened next exceeded everyone's expectations. Not only was the immortal bell ringing, it was also emitting a terrifying killing intent, accompanied by cruel words that shook the world. The whole world was shaken. Some of the leaders of the ancient immortal sects were envious. The Cien people issued a shocking reward, offering a series of treasures that could be used to refine the 9th level life essence evolution liquid. As long as one could find and stop Su Yin, they could obtain these treasures. This is too generous. The Cien people are indeed the Cien people. The ancestral courts of the major factions were shaken. What was the 9th level life essence evolution liquid? It was very useful even for supremes. Once consumed and refined, it would strengthen one's foundation and increase the success rate of Daozu's breakthrough in the future by 30 to 40%. This was a bit frightening. Moreover, the greatest effect of the level 9 life essence evolution fluid was to enhance a person's life essence. Even a piece of trash could become a supreme overlord whose might could shake the world. It was hard to imagine how frightening its value was. In the history of the immortal heavenly domain, the number of times a 9th level life essence evolution liquid had been refined could be counted with one's fingers. The main reason was that the materials were too easy to gather. The Cien people had succeeded in refining it before, but they didn't expect their race to have 3 materials. Of course, this race's treasury definitely had more than 3 materials. In short, the Cien people were completely crazy. They paid a huge price to capture Su Yin. If we don't kill this brat, what face do we have left? The group of old fogies of the Cien people roared. The ancestral court had already begun to shake. The silent Daozu would come out of seclusion. They had even sensed his aura in advance. The Cien people's primogenitor was very likely to return soon. The immortal bell kept ringing, calling for the world to kill Su Yin together. After all, the bounty was too frightening. Some of the powers caught a terrifying aura surging in some famous mountains and great rivers. Without a doubt, this was the 9th level life essence evolution liquid. Even if it was just an ingredient, it was exceptionally astonishing and could prolong one's life. Although it was said that Su Yin could temporarily possess Daozu's battle prowess, the world believed that even if Su Yin possessed it, he wasn't Daozu. The Cien people have really gone crazy. The race kept ringing the bell, causing a spectacular commotion. It seemed like they were serious about killing Su Yin. Su Yin, I don't think he'll live for more than a day. This is the strongest race in the immortal heavenly domain. Someone roared. No matter how strong a person was, he couldn't contend against an ancient race, let alone the Cien people. They had paid a huge price to mobilize the world to kill Su Yin. One had to admit that a storm was brewing in the immortal heavenly domain. Currently, a group of old monsters was on an expedition to conquer the Xianwang universe. Now, some of the neutral experts in the immortal heavenly domain were tempted. The Cien people were only offering a bounty for Su Yin's whereabouts. They didn't say anything about exchanging his head for the 9th level life essence evolution liquid. Ingredients. Of course, some people felt that Su Yin wouldn't give up so easily. Since he had already made his move, there might be a follow-up. The bounty is truly enviable. I want nothing more than to sell myself. Su Yin closed in on the immortal city. His eyes were also scanning the immortal bell hanging in the sky. The group of old monsters were ringing the bell together. They wanted to stir up a huge storm and suppress Su Yin under such circumstances. One had to admit that under the influence of the group of old monsters, the death of the primogenitor's two disciples was reduced to the lowest level. Hence, the Xian people were waving their flags and shouting for help. Killing intent surged unceasingly. Whoosh! All of a sudden, an unknown aura surged in the immortal city that was being watched by countless living beings. This was an extremely terrifying pressure that swept across the entire immortal city. In an instant, the atmosphere in the immortal city was extremely silent. The 5 old experts in charge of guarding the city felt a chill run down their spines. They felt that a terrifying aura was descending from the sky and was about to attack the immortal city. What's that? Everyone's heart trembled. Above the immortal continent, the sky shattered, and a huge fist emerged. The light of the universe gushed out from the 33 layers of heaven, accompanied by a vast heaven burial aura, shrouding the entire immortal city. When the aura spread out, the vast immortal continent trembled violently. Without a doubt, this aura had shaken the entire immortal continent in a short time. Roar! The 5 old antiques roared. A powerful enemy had invaded and was heading straight for the immortal city. In the blink of an eye, the immortal bell blazed with a blinding light. The 5 old experts released their life chi into the immortal bell, causing the immortal bell to flow with the supreme light of order. The light rippled like a tsunami and blasted towards the fist that was pressing down on the immortal city. Boom! A loud explosion rang out, shattering the vast space-time. The fist seal glowed. The light of the universe poured down like the 33 layers of heaven, shattering the bell waves that surged up into the sky. In an instant, a terrifying figure rushed towards the immortal city with a light that could destroy the world, and a terrifying aura that could make all living beings in the universe fall to the ground. The huge, ancient city darkened. The boundless violent aura was about to fall and crush the immortal city. Boom! Su Yin charged over. His cold eyes, terrifying body, and shocking fist seal were like ancient stars crashing down. Who's that? The outside world was shocked. It was suspected that the supreme Daozu had attacked. He waved his fist and hit the immortal bell. The bell shook violently, and the bell waves shook the sky. It was extremely violent. In an instant, the 5 experts who worked together to strike the bell screamed. They exploded, shattered under the bell waves, and collapsed into 5 masses of bloodlight. Kill! Su Yen roared. His long black hair danced in the wind. His fist seals shocked the world. One punch after another landed on the immortal bell. 9 consecutive punches burst out. The immortal bell was about to explode. At the same time, the bell was knocked down by Su Yin and rushed towards the immortal city. Kacha! The gate of the immortal city was crushed and exploded. This was a shocking scene. The immortal bell shook and roared. The bell waves were like a tsunami, causing the entire immortal city to tremble. Countless buildings collapsed. Along the way, the Xian people's army bled from their 7 orifices and their souls were extinguished. The huge bell plowed a huge bloody hole in the ground and rushed towards the blurry world behind the immortal city. It was as if it was going to sink the ancestral land of the Xian people. Chapter 1742. It was too wild. The immortal punching bell smashed through the gates of the immortal city. This was equivalent to breaking through the defenses of the immortal city at lightning speed. As the gates of the immortal city exploded, the entire city dimmed. Countless killing formations returned to a state of silence. The immortal bell, in particular, rumbled under Su Yan's 9 punches. The ripples were powerful enough to destroy the heavens and earth. The entire city trembled. Countless buildings collapsed. Smoke and dust billowed, and rocks flew everywhere. However, the immortal bell burned even more fiercely. Su Yan's punches were too frightening. The immortal bell plowed through the ground, breaking the entire immortal city into 2, and it was going to explode in the process. Everyone in the world went crazy. This was too domineering. The immortal punching bell used the most precious treasure of the Xian people to attack the immortal city. Moreover, the entire city was broken into 2. A priceless ancient city was declared destroyed. The ancient city was filled with a rain of blood. It could be said that rivers of blood flowed like rivers, and mountains of corpses were filled with blood. A large number of immortal warriors were filled with fear and despair. The terrifying bell waves kept reverberating in the broken city. Too many cultivators had their yuan divinities destroyed, and the flesh shells of the immortal warriors exploded, turning them into blood mist. In an instant, blood dyed the sky. The land of the immortal state seemed to be dyed red with blood. The number of cultivators who died was immeasurable. In the outside world, the cultivators who retreated from the immortal city felt their scalps go numb. Fortunately, they ran quickly. Otherwise, they would have collapsed like the immortal city. In short, the experts who attacked the immortal city were too crazy. They would not stop until they were dead. Boom! In the end, the immortal bell smashed into the blurry great world behind the immortal city. In an instant, a thunderous boom erupted from the nine heavens. The clouds in the sky collapsed, and the outer space trembled. Even the galaxy was vast and mighty, and then it started to collapse. Originally, the ancestral land of the Cien people would have a hole in it. However, the truth was that the Cien people were very powerful and prosperous. Once they were invaded by strong enemies, the ancestral land of the Cien people would automatically revive. The blurry great world instantly became a billion times brighter. Heavens, isn't the foundation of the Cien people too heaven-defying? Everyone was shocked. They looked into the distance. The entire immortal state had dimmed temporarily. It was the birth of the ancestral land of the race. Blazing flames filled the sky, as if millions of killing formations were burning, spewing endless light of order. In the process of revival, the ancestral land of the immortal sect's ancestral land. The ancestral lands of the immortal orthodoxy's ancestral lands were glowing. The immortal bell was blocked, unable to break in at all. The longer it took for the immortal race's ancestral land to revive, the more shocking the background became. The supreme great Tao of order was arranged in a crisscrossing pattern, innumerable. Moreover, one could faintly see terrifying giants reviving to protect the sect. There were at least dozens of supreme figures overlooking the starry sky of the universe, shocking everyone in the world. Without a doubt, the history of the immortal clan was too glorious and brilliant. The ancestral lands were all supported by the powerful Tao ancestors of the past generations. Once they were invaded by strong enemies, they would be resurrected and automatically turn into a life-forbidden zone, shocking the world. Su Yin stood above the ruined immortal city. He was majestic. His hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like cold lightning. The entire Cien people's ancestral land seemed to be condensed in his eyes. He tried to find a way in and force his way in. But the Cien people's foundation was too shocking. There were no gaps. He had to break through with force. This foundation, the old leader was speechless. It was too shocking. Who could force their way in? Dozens of Daozu avatars appeared. They suppressed the Cien people's foundation. At the same time, they were looking down on the enemy. They were about to attack and kill Su Yin. Su Yin, it's really you. In the Cien people's ancestral land, heart-wrenching cries were heard. It was too humiliating. They were calling the world to offer a huge bounty for Su Yin's arrest. But now, Su Yin came knocking on their door. He destroyed the immortal city and even shook the Cien people. They were burning their foundation. One should know that foundation couldn't be used recklessly. Whatever was burned would be less. Even if Su Yin retreated now, the Cien people would suffer a great loss. You piece of trash! An old antique from the immortal race roared, his aura extremely shocking. He was also a half-Dao ancestor, roaring, "You dare attack my immortal race? If you have the guts, then come in. Let's see how long you can last." The Cien people were in a riot. Killing intent surged and shook the land of the immortal state violently. At the same time, it attracted the attention of all the orthodoxies in the world. The important figures of the various races were shocked. It was Su Yin. He really had the power of a Daozu. Bastards of the Cien people, what are you holding up for? Su Yin clasped his hands behind his back and looked down at the immortal clan like a god of war patrolling the heavens. He let out an angry roar. I've already killed your sect leader. Why do you have to be so arrogant in front of your grandpa Su? Su Yan's bloody wounds were exposed. The Xian people's ancestral land roared. It was completely formed by killing intent. Some people couldn't take it anymore and rushed out to fight Su Yin to the death. This race had never suffered such humiliation. They had to fight to the death. A bunch of cowards. Su Yin shouted coldly. I'm here. I'm standing here. What did you Xian people do to me? Hiding inside and saying a few harsh words is laughable. Come out if you're a man and fight me. I can't take it anymore. Groups of Xian people experts roared. Su Yin was blocking the entrance of their ancestral land and suppressing a supreme sect. It was a naked humiliation. However, this group of people was stopped in an instant when they were about to rush out. Su Yin was no longer the Daluo Golden Immortal he was 40 years ago. He now had the power of an invincible supreme. He could even stand in Daozu's territory at any time. He had the most terrifying power in the undying heavenly domain. They would be killed and humiliated if they rushed out now. They could only wait for their ancestors to come back and capture Su Yin. Su Yin, he can't be redeemed even if he dies 100 times. A large group of experts among the Xian people roared and their eyes turned red. The Xian people had never suffered such humiliation since the founding of their sect. A young man was blocking their entrance, but none of the Xian people dared to come out and fight. The faces of the upper echelons of the immortal race were extremely gloomy. If news of this were to spread, the reputation of the immortal race would be swept to the ground. This could be called the greatest humiliation in the history of the immortal race. How would the outside world view their race? Could it be that without the immortal progenitor, the immortal race would be at the mercy of others? One had to know that they were facing a ruthless person now. In fact, the outside world was already in an uproar. A person blocking the entrance of the Xian people, and he was the biggest enemy of the Xian people. No one in the race dared to come out and fight him. It was a tragedy for the race. Su Yin, what are you being so arrogant for? Someone in the ancestral land roared. Didn't the celestial court fall in such a tragic situation back then? Let me tell you, our ancestors are coming back soon. I'll see how you die then. Slap. As soon as he roared, he was slapped by an ancestral patriarch of the Xian people. His face cracked, and even his body was about to shatter. The ancestral patriarch was furious. If this spread out, wouldn't it mean that among the Xian people, only their ancestors could suppress Su Yin? Wouldn't it mean that Su Yin was on the same level as their ancestors? He was just a young expert with a short history. Now he was threatening a supreme sect, and only their ancestors could fight him. How could the Xian people raise their heads in the immortal heavenly domain in the future? They are stalling for time. The ancestral patriarch said coldly, the Xian people have a strong foundation. Although they don't specialize in killing, once they fight, they are still very powerful. If they don't attack now, it seems that their ancestors are already on their way back. Su Yin had been observing the Xian people's foundation. He couldn't find any shortcuts, and it was almost impossible to attack them head-on. He felt that their foundation had reached the limit of the universe and its capacity. Su Yin frowned. Retreat just like that? Although he had dealt a heavy blow to the Xian people's arrogance, he was still unwilling to give up. By the way, where did Dao Shuyi go? Su Yin was a little confused. Where was Dao Shuyi? He couldn't see her at all. Then, Su Yin looked at the Xian people strangely. Could it be that Dao Shuyi had already stepped into the Xian people? Otherwise, Dao Shuyi wouldn't have left at such a critical juncture for no reason. Suddenly, Su Yan's expression changed. His eyes focused on the Xian people's foundation. The burning foundation was like a forbidden ocean in front of him, cutting off Su Yan's path. Now, this ocean formed by the interweaving of supreme order suddenly dimmed, especially a small area. It could be said to be dead silent, as if the foundation had been wiped out invisibly. What's wrong? What happened to the foundation? This scene made all the upper echelons of the Xian people roar. Their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and they were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. How could this be? This was the Xian people's strongest foundation burning, boiling, and emitting a terrifying killing order to protect the mountain gate. Now that a portion of the foundation had dimmed and the transmission channel was closed, how could something as ridiculous as not operating properly happen? Actually, the people outside were also shocked. Some people thought that the Xian people were deliberately leading the Xian people into the Xian people's territory. In short, the upper echelons of the Xian people were in chaos. Could there be a traitor among the Xian people? The closing of some of the foundation channels had caused the foundation of the Xian people to be greatly reduced. There was no time to think now. In the Xian people's ancestral land, the killing was like a sea in a short period of time. One after another, the slumbering great killing weapons were awakened and charged into the ocean of foundation to fill the gap. However, no matter how fast they couldn't be faster than Su Yan. He was already charging over, like a supreme demon lord who had broken through the earth. He crossed the heavens and flowed with the light of the universe of the 33 heavens. Kill! Su Yan roared. His figure charged into the silent area of the foundation. He raised his hand, and the moment a blood-red jar appeared in the sky, it poured down. The boundless power of Bury the Heavens enveloped the entire Xian people's foundation. Who didn't know about this great killing weapon? Back in the day, it was in the hands of the prehistoric Big Brother, who had won an unparalleled ferocity in the battlefield of the pinnacle. Now, Su Yin wielded the Bury the Heaven jar and shook the Xian people's foundation with a rumble. He suppressed the reopening of the foundation channel and forcefully opened a path. Moreover, he used the Bury the Heaven jar to suppress the strongest foundation of the Xian people. Brats of the Xian people, Grandpa Su is here to visit. Get out here and welcome him. Su Yin roared into the sky. Rolling ripples scattered down, shaking the Xian people's ancestral land. His entire body was wrapped in a monstrous killing aura as he charged in along a path. Chapter 1743. He really did it. The people in the outside world were shocked. What had happened to the Xian people's foundation? Suddenly, they couldn't operate it properly, and their foundation was halved. This gave Su Yin a chance to attack. Su Yin was decisive enough. He used the heaven-burying jar to suppress the Xian people's foundation and opened up the tunnel. He charged into the Xian people, and a golden path extended from the soles of his feet. No one knew how strong Su Xianren was. Currently, Su Yan's appearance was sufficiently domineering. His figure carried a terrifying heavenly might. Moreover, his flesh shell was covered with a layer of 9-colored battle armor. The battle armor, which was made from the stars in the sky that were tempered by 9-colored sand, made Su Yin appear powerful and shocking. The heaven-burying cave fused with his flesh shell, and the brilliance of the 33 heavens shook. Su Yin directly possessed Daozu's battle strength. A cauldron floated in his palm. Although it was a little damaged, the 9 continents cauldron was, after all, the most powerful treasure of the 9 cauldron prefectures. It whizzed out with a boundless and heavy energy source, as if the 9 great prefectures were within it. The heaven-opening brush floated in Su Yan's other palm. It was as if he had grasped the heavens of the universe, and it looked a little terrifying. Rivers of stars fell from the sky, and boundless territories rose and fell. The unparalleled power of heaven and earth was converging towards Su Yin. He was armed to the teeth. The heaven-burying cave, the 9 continents cauldron, and the heaven-opening brush. These 3 supreme treasures supported Su Yan's battle strength, making him like the king of the universe. With a roar, the heavens collapsed and the earth cracked. A big explosion was about to happen. In fact, the Xian people's ancestral land was very sturdy. Daozu's energy order existed in the ancestral land, and it was very difficult to destroy. Otherwise, Su Yan's roar would have completely destroyed the entire ancestral land. Even so, the energy ripples that filled the sky swept over, making the Xian people cry out in fear. Large batches of living beings' flesh shells exploded into pieces. Blood filled the sky like a waterfall. The ancestral land of the Xian people had entered an era of bloodshed. The gods and devils were weeping. The Xian people's ancestral land was shaking and the mountains were shaking. They simply couldn't withstand the aura of the experts who had killed their way in. Even the old ancestors were trembling, and their bodies were on the verge of breaking apart. This was a terrifying, ferocious might that swept across the entire Xian people. No one could say for sure how strong Su Yin was. With the support of the three ancient treasures, his dermic powers were unstoppable. Even if the invincible god of war descended to the mortal world, he would still be able to suppress the Xian people and destroy the entire immortal orthodoxy. "Bring out your foundation," an old ancestor shouted. They had to stop Su Yin, or else the consequences would be unimaginable once he charged over. Boom! In the depths of the ancestral land, an ancient graveyard shone. Wave after wave of blood-colored lightning surged, tearing apart the sky dome and piercing through the great stars in the heavens. What was that? A giant lightning hammer charged out of the graveyard. Entwined with billions of lightning bolts, it could easily destroy the heavens and the earth. Like a world-destroying hammer, it suddenly charged out of the graveyard and charged towards Su Yin. This was Daozu's heavenly weapon, the most powerful treasure of the Xian people who had passed away in meditation. It floated in the graveyard, and now it was awakened and charged out. Of course, it wasn't just one graveyard. Some other graveyards shone in succession, blazing and rolling, forming a shocking scene. There were snow-white heavenly blades, jet-black divine whips, monstrous killing seals, one after another. Super killing weapons came alive. There were 8 killing weapons in succession. They were all treasures left behind by Daozu when the Xian people had passed away in meditation. These graveyards were the inheritance grounds of the Xian people. Until now, no expert of the Xian people had been recognized by these graveyards. Now, the 8 graveyards shone. Even the phantom of Daozu was manifesting. Together, they resonated with each other and could slaughter the most powerful person in the world. "Kill him," the experts of the Xian people shouted excitedly. This was the second resurrection of their race's foundation. One had to admit that the scene was terrifying. A series of great experts of the Xian people activated treasures and weapons that filled the sky and charged towards Su Yin. Crush Su Yin. The Xian people are invincible. They didn't believe that such a grand setup couldn't suppress Su Yin. Endless killing weapons came charging along a path. The source of the weapons was already collapsing. Destructive storms were everywhere, and they were all bent on wiping out Su Yin. Roar! Su Yin sensed great danger. The heaven-opening writing brush hovering in his palm shone. In an instant, billions of mysterious runes fell on the vast ancestral land of the Xian people. In an instant, it was as if a corner of the heavens was trembling. The endless terrain of the Xian people's ancestral land was recovering. The origin of the dragon veins leaked out, and billions of divine light shone. My God, this lunatic! The people in the outside world were shocked. They saw the heaven-opening writing brush. The most powerful treasure of the ancient celestial court, the heaven-opening writing brush, had awakened. It triggered the power of the terrain of the Xian people's ancestral land and guided the boundless light of the terrain to surge out. This scene was really like a jade. The universe's ocean was exploding. The power of the mysterious gate reached the heavens and resonated with the universe. The laws of order bloomed all over the sky. The power of the heavens was awakened and merged with the power of the earth. Some people thought that Su Yin was crazy. He had turned himself into the heart of the formation and attracted the power of the heavens and the earth to gather around him. Wasn't he afraid that he would explode? The chanting of sutras in Su Yin's body filled the air. The moon and the sun corresponded to the power of the heavens and the earth. Su Yin pointed one finger to the sky and the other to the earth. He turned into a war god who reigned supreme. As the beginning sutra circulated, the carrier of the universe seemed to rise behind Su Yin. "Kill!" Su Yin roared. With the heaven's burial cave protecting his body, he wasn't afraid of being killed. The boundless power of order filled the air and charged forward along the path of the endless killing weapons. Rumble, a destructive tide erupted. The power of the heavens and the earth gave birth to a huge explosion. The entire ancestral land of the Cien people seemed to have collapsed. The energy tide rushed into the sky and surged toward the surrounding great provinces. This was an inconceivable scene. It was hard for people to imagine that this destructive force was formed by Su Yan. He was going to sacrifice the essence of the ancestral land of the Cien people to resist the supreme, killing calamity of the Cien people. The entire world turned blurry. Nothing could be seen. Some people saw that the sky was filled with weapon fragments. They didn't know how many killing weapons had been destroyed. However, in this destructive space-time, the 8 Daozu heavenly soldiers of the Cien people were still terrifying. They slashed at Su Yan one after another. "Let me do it." "You go and harvest the creation." The old leader let out a long howl. The endless source of life in his body leaked out. "Old leader," Su Yan shouted. He was worried. The old leader was breaking through. He decisively broke through the barrier of the realm and entered the Daozu realm. He was going to trigger the boundless heavenly tribulation to resist the second great killing calamity of the Cien people. In fact, the Cien people's foundation was too strong. Even the old leader was worried. Although Su Yan could use the power of the heavens and the earth to resist, many unforeseen events would occur if this battle was delayed. It wouldn't be easy to eliminate the Cien people. No matter what, he had to harvest a batch of creation first. In short, this battle couldn't be fought in vain. Rumble. The heavens and the earth were dark and een. The heavenly wind in the universe howled. A vast sea of thunder appeared. This was the greatest heavenly power. It made everyone's hair stand on end. Even the experts in the great provinces who were far away trembled. This was the Daozu heavenly tribulation. It contained the will of the heavens and the strongest great Tao. It came crashing down in unison. One could imagine this heavenly tribulation. How terrifying was this tribulation? Who's that? The great sects in the outside world were horrified. Transcending a tribulation in the Cien people's ancestral land under such circumstances was truly insane. Bastard! A series of Cien people experts roared. Their eyes were red. Who would have thought that the old leader would be so wild and choose to transcend the tribulation at this time? Once he triggered millions of killing calamities, the Cien people's ancestral land would be severely damaged. It was too late to say anything now. The old leader's supreme killing calamity had already swept over. The boundless heavenly lightning formed by the order of the strongest great Tao appeared. It was like a raging sea crashing down and drowning millions of miles away. Arg! At the same time, countless Cien people experts screamed. Their flesh was torn open, and they howled in fear. This was the Daozu heavenly tribulation. Ordinary experts couldn't withstand it. Even the veteran supreme beings were green in the face. Even the prospective Daozu was scared. Who could withstand it when it came crashing down endlessly? Save me. The great mountains were destroyed, and countless palaces exploded. Batch after batch of living beings were killed along with them. The entire place, shrouded by the heavenly tribulation, emitted an aura of endless panic. Why haven't the ancestors in the ancestral court come out of seclusion? An ancestor roared. He was about to go crazy. Su Xianren had attacked the immortal world, and now an old expert of unknown origin was transcending a tribulation in their ancestral land. He wanted to kill millions of living beings and destroy the Cien people's inheritance. The ancestral court was very quiet. Not a single fluctuation came from it. A group of old monsters walked out of the ancestral court with extremely gloomy expressions. There seemed to be a big problem in the ancestral court because at least 3 Daozu were sleeping. They must have sensed such a big thing happening in the outside world. After all, in the face of such a disaster, they needed Daozu experts to hold down the fort. But the problem was that there were no Daozu experts alive except for their foundation. But there was no news from the ancestral court. The problem was a little scary. Moreover, they couldn't break into the ancestral court. What happened inside? This was the most powerful forbidden area of the ancestral court. If an accident really happened, the consequences would be unimaginable. Don't panic, calm down. A prospective Daozu roared. The ancestor will return as soon as he receives the news. He must be getting closer and closer to the Xian people. They will all die. None of them will survive. The Xian people's higher-ups were in chaos, but they still had hope. As long as the ancestor was here, the sky would not collapse. As long as the ancestor was here, the Xian people would still be an invincible race. The ancestor was invincible. This was where the Xian people's confidence came from. Originally, Su Yin was exploring some treasure lands. But the problem was that the ancestral land of the Xian people was too big, and Daozu's aura was spreading in all the major realms. Therefore, Su Yin couldn't explore a large area. If this continued, when would he be able to find the treasure? This gave him a headache. Suddenly, Su Yin sensed a familiar aura. Wasn't this Zhu Sheng's aura? Su Yan's divine consciousness came into contact with this aura. Suddenly, a large number of topographic maps appeared in his eyes. He was pleasantly surprised. This was the treasure map of the ancestral land of the Xian people. A large number of forbidden areas were marked. Su Yin even realized that the location of the Earth Immortal Tree was recorded on the treasure map. This was what Su Yin wanted the most. This guy is doing well among the Xian people. Su Yin was also surprised. Zhu Sheng was now a figure with real power among the Xian people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to close the foundation and open the tunnel. Chapter 1744. Red light covered the celestial continent. This wasn't the blood mist of the dead, but the spectacle of the old leader's breakthrough. Golden blood light covered the entire celestial continent. Golden chi and blood roiled within, spreading along with the light of 10,000 tribulations and growing stronger in the process. Roar! The old man threw his head back and roared. His life force was unleashed to resist the endless suppression of the heavenly tribulation, to resist the interrogation of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Layers upon layers of shackles began to break apart, and each time a layer was torn apart, his aura would surge. This also made the old leader's aura too terrifying. The celestial continent couldn't contain it. Xian people, we've suffered heavy casualties. The outside world was in an uproar. The spectators of the various tribes couldn't bear to watch. Too many experts had died, batch after batch. It was like cutting grass. Who could escape? It must be understood that the old leader was extremely berserk. Normally, it would take him several days to break through to the Tao Father level. However, he was able to increase his own power without limit, and he was able to furiously absorb the essence of the immortal province. His breakthroughs were extremely fast, and the heavenly tribulation that he was guiding down upon him was becoming increasingly terrifying. The heavenly tribulation descended, destroying the heavens and extinguishing the earth. Countless immortal cultivators screamed miserably as they were reduced to ashes. But no matter how tragic the scene was, it could not compare to the vastness of the heavenly tribulation. We can't summon them back. The patriarchs of the immortals were on the verge of despair. The 8 great ancestral heavenly armaments of their race were trembling within the heavenly tribulation. After withstanding the bombardment of billions of heavenly tribulations, the auras emanating from the 8 weapons began to dim. The heavenly tribulations broke the path. The Xian people lost contact with the weapons in the graveyard and couldn't summon them back. With the strength of the Daozu weapons, they won't be destroyed by the heavenly tribulations. A young expert couldn't help but say, "We'll just wait for the ancestor to return and kill them." What do you know? The Xian people's ancestor scolded angrily. This is Daozu's heavenly tribulations, the interrogation of the strongest great Tao of heaven and earth. Once the 8 Daozu weapons are tempered by the great Tao of heaven and earth, the imprints inside will disappear. They won't belong to the Xian people anymore. They might fall into the hands of the celestial court. What? The expressions of the young masters of the Xian people changed dramatically. This was the weapon of the 8 Daozu, the most powerful treasure of the Xian people. Even if the Xian people managed to retrieve the 8 Daozu weapons, the Daozu imprints inside the weapons had already dissipated, so their power was bound to be greatly reduced. In short, their losses were too great. Moreover, the Xian people's ancestral land kept sinking. If this continued, the Xian people's vitality would be greatly damaged. Who is this person? His breakthrough speed is too crazy. It's impossible that the Xian people don't have other Daozu. This kind of existence can interfere with the heavenly tribulation. Why don't I see him? The people of the outside world were all terrified, shocked by the old chief's aura. After continuously breaking through, he suffered serious injuries, but the golden blood within his body surged, continuously healing his injured body. In addition, his aura became more and more world-shocking. Finally, the pores of the old chief's entire body gushed out the thick light of myriad tribulations. The old chief was a first-generation myriad tribulations body. Under the refinement of the supreme great Tao of heaven and earth, the great Tao world within the old chief's body changed. The power of myriad tribulations evolved into tens of thousands of great Tao imprints, surging with the supreme light of order. Each imprint was as thick as a real dragon. From this moment on, the old chief's aura became even more domineering. His vitality circulated endlessly and became stronger. He was about to soar into the sky and become a sage of myriad Tao. This is the myriad tribulations body. The old chief has broken the curse. Su Yan's eyes flashed with excitement. He felt that the old chief's physique had become much stronger. There was no longer any difficulty for him to become a sage. All he needed was accumulation. However, the power of the Xian people was too prosperous. It could completely satisfy the old chief. Of course, with the old chief around, it was too dangerous for the Xian people to break through. Therefore, they had to use all means to speed up their breakthrough. Boom! At this moment, Su Yan opened a large treasure trove. To be precise, Su Yan was still in the area covered by the heavenly tribulation. He used the Tao of Strange Door to seal the sky and land. At this moment, the underground treasure trove he opened was a little frightening. The fragrance of herbs and fruits filled the sky, forming a scene of surging spiritual energy. What's that? Why are there endless great herbs appearing in the heavenly tribulation? Is this the vision of Daozu's heavenly tribulation? The experts who were watching from the outside world exclaimed. They saw a shocking scene in a corner of the endless heavenly tribulation. There were all kinds of rare herbs, too many to count. There were heavenly dragon grass, vermilion bird fruit, 7-colored glazed flower. There were too many to count. The medicinal soil underground was a manifestation of a universe. In particular, the higher-ups of the Dawn Zone were in an uproar. This was the legendary universe medicinal soil hidden in the earth. It stole the essence of the earth and was of great help in cultivating rare herbs. The scary thing was that the universe medicinal soil was filled with all kinds of rare herbs. This made the old monsters of the Dawn Zone jealous. Heavens, this was the universe medicinal soil. It was so huge that it covered the sky. Now it was filled with all kinds of rare herbs. This was too shocking, wasn't it? A heart-wrenching roar exploded. Thousands of roars sounded. It originated from the grief and anger transmitted from the depths of the Xian people's ancestral land. The heavenly tribulation couldn't cover the entire ancestral land. The ancestral land of the Xian people was extremely vast. It had to be measured in hundreds of millions. Our tribe's universe medicine. The eyes of the old monsters of the Xian people were red. They were so angry that their souls were trembling. Their entire bodies were shaking. Some people almost fainted. This was the most powerful medicinal soil of the Xian people, the universe medicinal soil. It belonged to the most precious medicinal fields of the Xian people. Only the sect leader was qualified to open and use it. Now, the universe medicinal soil had been dug out. This was a medicinal soil that had merged with the earth. Who could dig it out? It's him, Su Xianren. The eyes of the Xian people were red. They were so angry that they were coughing up blood. Their anger soared to the sky. Su Yin uprooted the universe's medicinal soil and stuffed it into the burial cave. In the process, he picked a lot of rare herbs. These couldn't be bought with money. They would be of great help to Daozu. Good timing. Let's make a fuss over the Xian people. Let's settle the score. The old leader laughed heartily. Hundreds of great herbs flew over. The fragrance of herbs filled the air. Essence qi surged and gushed with great Dao symbols of the universe. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of Dao fire to refine them. The endless precious medicinal power penetrated into the flesh shell and stimulated the old leader's energy to strengthen. He was like a peerless, fierce dragon that broke through continuously. The speed of his breakthrough was even more vigorous. Who did it? Who did it? Who? The higher-ups of the Xian people were all furious. Su Yin seemed to have a third eye. He knew the location of a series of secret treasure vaults. Su Yin dug them out one by one and took them all away with brutal methods. The people outside were stunned. Could it be that the Grandmaster of the occult sect was really so rampant? He dug up treasures like he was digging up weeds. Did he knock them out one by one? In short, more than 10 treasure vaults were opened by Su Yin. All of them were places where rare treasures were laid out. There were even a few embryos of supreme treasures that had been nurtured for millions of years. Su Yin dug out several of them. Su Yin's eyes were wide open. The harvest was too great. That's the eye of a great prefecture's life spring. It's equivalent to an immortal pond. It can seal Daozu's qi and blood and preserve it for countless years. How did Su Yin dig it out? Even in a flourishing prefecture, there might not be 3 or 5 of them. Look, this spring is too vigorous. It's obvious that it hasn't been used before. It's the Xian people's greatest trump card in the future. Some people's saliva almost flowed out. This was an incredible feat for a peak race. It could definitely extend the life of their strongest expert and extend their glory. So people felt their hearts ache. Su Yin drew out a sword embryo and cut off the life spring's eye. Su Yin roared in a low voice. This life spring was too heavy, and it had accumulated an immeasurable amount of life force. Even if he wanted to carry it away, he would have to expend a lot of strength. Su Yin pulled it up by the roots and threw it into the heaven-burying cave. Doubtlessly, this life spring was very powerful. The heaven-burying cave was emitting vigorous vitality and could be used as a battle spring in the future. So much so that Su Yin found that the stronger the heaven-burying cave was, the greater the power it would provide him. This shook him. If the heaven-burying cave was completely restored one day, it would be difficult to imagine how much help it would provide him. However, this would be extremely difficult. After all, the heaven-burying cave was a prehistoric land of fortune created by integrating all kinds of power. Even if he plundered all the immortal orthodoxies in the world, it would be impossible to refine a second heaven-burying cave. Delightful, delightful. The old chief roared loudly. His flesh, riddled with scars from the heavenly tribulation, was bathed in the life spring river drawn out by Su Yin. His flesh glowed, and his flesh seemed to have transformed into the source of the earth. It surged out with even more boundless life essence. The old chief felt that he was infinitely close to Daozu. The Xian people were too wealthy. Their treasuries were laid out in disarray. Some people even suspected that the Xian people were full of priceless treasures. However, what they didn't know was that this was only because Su Yin had obtained the treasure map. Of course, Zhu Sheng could only pinpoint the approximate location. However, with the location, with Su Yin's special ability, it was a piece of cake for him to capture it. Su Yin, you'll die a horrible death. You'll die a horrible death. A group of old monsters from the upper echelons of the Xian people had disheveled hair. Their eyes were wide open, and blood rained down from them. They seemed to have turned into a group of mad devils. Su Yin cut off their flesh piece by piece. A large number of treasure troves were emptied and placed inside the heaven-burying cave. He even continued his search and left the land of heavenly tribulation. Now, Su Yin wasn't in the mood to deal with the experts of the Xian people. He rushed to an important destination. He raised his hand and smashed a forbidden area opened up by Daozu with a slap. There was a guardian beast here. Unfortunately, it was only a supreme living being. Su Yin spat out a mouthful of air and killed this supreme being. What appeared before Su Yan's eyes was the legendary Earth Immortal Tree. It was also the most precious ancient tree that once belonged to the Celestial Court. Earth Immortal Tree. Thousands of sects were shocked. This was one of the strongest treasures of the Xian people. The Earth Immortal Tree was green and filled with an ancient aura. The tree was huge, like a giant bamboo that could hold up the sky. This tree had luxuriant branches and leaves. Its body was not large, and could even be said to be very short. However, its entire body was extremely large, like a short mountain. Its roots were also very thick and strong. It had extracted an immeasurable amount of earth essence. This was the legendary Earth Immortal Tree. It stole the earth essence and cultivated the earth immortal fruit. This was the best secret medicine, and its value was shocking. Su Yan roared. He used all his strength to pull out the earth immortal tree. In that instant, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The entire earth collapsed, and countless large cracks appeared. Su Yin was uprooting the tree. This scene made the experts of the immortal race roar. The group of old monsters were being tortured to the point of insanity. If they lost other things, they could still accumulate them, but there was only one earth immortal tree in the entire universe. In the end, Su Yin uprooted the entire earth immortal tree and stuffed it into the sky-burying cave. Everyone in the world was stunned. The earth immortal tree had been taken away. If the Xian people's ancestors returned, would they go crazy? This was the foundation that he had built. One by one, Su Yin had swept it clean. Not even a strand of hair was left behind. In the next moment, people realized that Su Yin was very excited. Was the Earth Immortal Tree not the most valuable thing? According to Zhu Shang's treasure map, the Xian people had important treasures. Only the Xian people's ancestors were qualified to open them. This was the Xian people's ancestral land. Other than the ancestral court, it was the most important treasure area. Even the Xian people sect leader was not qualified to enter. No one knew what was hidden inside. Zhu Sheng even suspected that it might be a secret cave abode opened by the Xian people's ancestors. Perhaps it hid a heavenly treasure. "I'm here. Open." Su Yin rushed over. In an instant, he evolved the heaven-splitting divine palm and slashed at the forbidden area. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled violently. A large crack appeared in the sky. A giant axe fell from the sky, about to split the entire forbidden area. But just as the forbidden area was about to explode, this ancient forbidden area glowed and surged with terrifying waves. A huge figure appeared in the sky, looking down on all life in the universe. Ancestor, the invincible ancestor has finally returned. With a wave of his sleeve, he'll definitely crush Su Yin. The Xian people, whose hearts were bleeding, roared. They all knelt down and shouted in grief and indignation. Finally, they saw the ancestor. He was finally here. I was wondering who it was. So it's the Xian people number one whose dog head was blown off by me. Su Yin swung his fist and attacked. He wanted to shatter the Xian people's ancestors' Dharma image. At the same time, it also proved that this place was extraordinary. It was protected by the power of the Xian people's ancestor. It was definitely a place of great treasures, a treasure even more valuable than the Earth Immortal Tree. Su Yin could not imagine what kind of space of creation the Xian people were hiding. Chapter 1745. The ancestor is invincible. His magic power is monstrous. He'll definitely defeat Su Yin. The Xian people's ancestral land, which was riddled with holes, was filled with grief and indignation. The race had been glorious for a long time, and their majesty had existed for a long time. Now, their ancestral land was in great trouble. Two great villains had caused trouble for the Xian people. The old leader had used Daozu's heavenly tribulation to suppress the boundless world and crush countless Xian people. Su Xianren was digging for the Xian people's treasures all over the world. However, the Xian people were unstoppable. No one could stop them. It had to be said that this was a great humiliation. The powerhouses in the outside world were dumbfounded. They thought that even if the Xian people's ancestor had gone to the Xianwang universe, the race would definitely have Daozu's backing. However, from the moment Su Yin attacked the Xian people until now, not a single Daozu powerhouse had been seen. This was a serious problem. Could it be that the Xian people's Daozu was being held back? Strictly speaking, although a quasi-Daozu was powerful enough, he was still not a Daozu. Even if Su Yin was at the level of a Daozu, once he encountered a true Daozu powerhouse, it would be a fierce battle. It was hard to say who would win and who would die. However, from the beginning to the end, the Xian people did not see a Daozu powerhouse come out. The Xian people's higher-ups could only watch as Su Yin dug for treasures all over the world. They felt that something big had happened in the ancestral court. If the ancestor did not come, the problem would be very serious. Now, in the Xian people's most powerful forbidden area, a terrifying figure appeared. Endless holy light flowed, accompanied by the supreme heavenly might from ancient times, and swept across the Xian people. From that moment onward, the entire clan went crazy. Countless clan members knelt on the ground in unison, forming a black mass. Although they knew that this was only the mark of their ancestor, they believed that even a Dharma idol mark was enough to suppress Su Yin. Wait, what did they see? Su Yin soared into the sky, brandishing his fist to attack the primogenitor's Dharma idol. Everyone in the outside world was shaken. Where did Su Xianren get his confidence from? He dared to make a move on the world's most terrifying giant's magical imprint? No matter how powerful and shocking he was, he still wasn't an expert like Daozu. Su Brat, you humiliated my clan's ancestor. 100 deaths won't be enough to atone for your humiliation. The Xian people roared angrily. Their eyes were so red that they were spewing out blood. They were furious. They could almost see Su Yin, who had attacked the Xian people's ancestral mark, being suppressed by the bloody scene. He was kneeling in the ancestral land of the Xian people, wailing and screaming. Who dares to trespass into my forbidden area? The ancestral mark of the Xian people had been resurrected, and it possessed a certain amount of spiritual power. The moment it was resurrected, it saw a young man leaping into the air and swinging his fist toward its head. Since ancient times, who dared to do this? Was he going to crush its head as soon as he made his move? In fact, the one who attacked was clearly a young powerhouse. This caused the immortal race primogenitor to be enraged. Although it was only a mark, once he was enraged, 2 cold bolts of lightning shot out from his eyes, as if he were a demon soldier that had rushed out from hell. His incarnation was blazing. The silent energy quickly went berserk. It filled the space and time between heaven and earth. It was going to destroy Su Yin. Boom! It had to be said that the progenitor of the immortals was extremely powerful. A single imprint released billions of supreme, great Tao rules and orders. In an instant, he was in his strongest state. The pressure caused the space and time to explode. Even Su Yan's rising figure was about to collapse. As expected, the ancestral mark of the Xian people he encountered this time was much more powerful than the head he had destroyed. Even as powerful as Su Yin was, he felt suffocated. Endless killing power pressed down on him. He felt like he was going to die. Even with the sky-burying cave supporting him, endless strength still swept toward him. It was going to destroy his true body. This old thing is so scary. Su Yan's heart skipped a beat. Was he too crazy? After all, he was not a Daozu yet. Moreover, the Xian people's ancestor was not an ordinary Daozu. In fact, this kind of person was called the King of Daozu. He was extremely powerful and prosperous. There were at most a dozen of such experts in the entire undying heavenly domain who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Moreover, the Xian people's ancestor was called the King of Daozu. He was an ultimate expert. The sky-burying cave was rumbling. After all, the sky-burying cave was damaged. The Supreme Daozu had the power to attack the inside of the cave and kill Su Yan's true body. Haha, did you see that? Little Su still wants to fight against our ancestors' divine power. Just a mere incarnation of our ancestor is enough to destroy him. The Xian people shouted excitedly and fanatically. They had supreme faith in their ancestor's divine power. As long as he was alive, the Xian people would still be the most powerful race and the most prosperous orthodoxy. Soldiers come. Suddenly, the sky-bearing jar that was guarding the Xian people's mountain gate shook violently. It spewed out a beam of terrifying light that darkened the vast world of the Xian people. It was accompanied by the supreme power of the sky-bearing jar that suppressed the entire Xian people. The ancient sky-bearing jar came back to life. Although it was suppressing the Xian people's strongest power, it could still help Su Yan with an attack. No, the experts of the celestial race cried out in horror. The power of the heaven burial jar was too shocking. It swept down with a rumble and covered the Dharma idol incarnation of the celestial race's ancestor. It was as if he was banished to the dark universe and buried by the great world. This was the sky-bearing jar. It was extremely powerful and belonged to the prehistoric era. It had a great background. It must have something to do with the sky-burying cave. Go to hell, Su Yan roared. The sky-burying jar, the nine-continent heavenly cauldron, the sky-opening brush, and the sky-burying cave charged forward at the same time. They shattered the Xian people's ancestors' Dharma form brand. Everyone in the world was stunned. How did Su Yan do it? Naturally, it had something to do with the life spring of the Xian people. Su Yan used the boundless essence qi stored in the life spring to unlock the power of the four treasures. He finally destroyed the Xian people's ancestor brand. In the next moment, Su Yan's eyes blazed with killing intent. He made his move. It was too wild and unrestrained. He charged into the forbidden zone and swung the nine-colored sky piercer. He struck again and again and destroyed the Xian people's most powerful forbidden zone. Boom! In an instant, even the heavens and the earth were trembling. Supreme ripples of order were released, and it instantly pressed down towards Su Yan, and it almost blasted him flying. Su Yan was shocked. What's going on? Could there be an expert like Daozu overseeing this place and guarding the supreme treasure in the Forbidden Zone? This was the boundless light of order. It formed chains of the great Tao, and the supreme great Tao of heaven and earth seemed to be operating. The pressure was too strong. Su Yan felt like he was carrying the universe on his back. His body was trembling slightly. What's that? The outside world was also shocked. They wanted to know what the supreme treasure that the Xian people's ancestor valued was. However, the source of the light was too dazzling. Order surged like an ocean. It was so blinding that they could barely open their eyes. However, some people growled. They saw ancestor matter surging in the ocean of order. Heavens, what kind of treasure is this? There's ancestor matter leaking out. Everyone in the world was shocked. Ancestor matter was the essence of the universe. Its value was unimaginable. It would be of great help to Daozu when he was breaking through. Open for me. Su Yan let out a long roar. He opened his mouth and spat out a great Tao divine sound, breaking apart layers of ocean of order. He saw a sacred tree shining in the direction of the source. It was bathed in endless rules of order. There was also ancestor matter flowing around it. The scene was too dreamy. What kind of tree was this? Ancestor matter leaked out. The supreme order was arranged in countless numbers. This sacred tree also shone and gushed with the sound of great Tao. It was as if the heavens were lying horizontally, surging with an incomparable aura. Moreover, there were all kinds of leaves on the sacred tree. Each leaf was like a sea of stars, containing the universe's great stars. Endless rules of order. But there was ancestor matter surging and rippling. Su Yan's eyes were wide open. What kind of supreme treasure was this? On the holy tree, there were 9 leaves. They had long since matured, and each leaf rumbled, expounding a terrifying great Tao. It was like the path to heaven was arranged, and it could help one reach the Tao ancestor realm. This is, in the outside world, an old monster shouted. This is the ultimate treasure medicine, the Daozu tree. His words shook the continents one after another, causing a huge commotion. The entire undying heaven realm seemed to be in a frenzy, shaking the entire world. The experts of the Xian people were also dumbfounded. They were trembling. The legendary Daozu tree, the ultimate treasure medicine. The Daozu tree only existed in legends. It was said that the Daozu tree could produce 9 leaves. Each leaf contained great hope to pass the path of Daozu. According to the legends, each leaf had a great chance of success and could help people reach Daozu. Whether this legend was true or not, but why didn't the Xian people know that they had such a tree? After all, the Daozu tree was too helpful to a group of people. Once the 9 leaves had matured, once they fell, they might be able to cultivate 4 or 5 Daozu experts for the Xian people. The high-level experts of the Xian people went crazy. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets, and they roared. This was a terrifying treasure. Was it going to fall into the hands of Su Yan? Su Yan's eyes also turned red. He felt that this treasure was too scary. He didn't know how long it had been nurtured, and it had matured long ago. Boom! He raised his hand and was about to uproot the Daozu tree. However, as soon as his hand touched the Daozu tree, the tree glowed and became terrifying. The 9 leaves showed the figures of the ancestors of the Xian people, and the Daozu tree also seemed to have turned into the ancestors of the Xian people. This manifestation was too scary. No matter how strong Su Yan was, he couldn't touch the Daozu tree. Oh no! Su Yan's expression changed drastically. He couldn't afford to miss such a great opportunity. He activated the treasures in his body and tried to suppress the Daozu tree further. However, he still failed. There was something wrong with this tree. It wasn't as simple as being an ultimate treasure medicine. It contained the endless marks of the great path of the ancestors of the Xian people. Boom! It was also at this moment that waves of vast great path, immortal might surge from the outside world. The entire Xian continent darkened. It was as if the supreme master of the great path had returned. Oh no, the ancestors of the Xian people are here. Su Yan's expression was extremely ugly. The ancestors of the Xian people were already halfway into the Xian people's ancestral land. The old leader was extremely anxious. He transmitted his voice to Su Yan and told him to leave immediately. However, it was too late. The ancestors of the Xian people were too fast. They stepped on the starry sky, and the great path order in the sky shook. The supreme heavenly might radiated down and covered the entire ancestral land of the Xian people. Ancestor, the powerhouses of the Xian people, who were on the verge of despair, roared hysterically. The ancestors had returned. They had finally returned. Evil creature, when the ancestors of the Xian people saw the forbidden land opened by Su Yan, they didn't even care about the old leader, who was about to complete his breakthrough. They wanted to suppress Su Yan. However, just as they stretched out their hands, their expressions changed drastically. Their cold eyes fell on the Xian people's ancestral court. The people of the world were stunned. What was going on? The ancestors of the Xian people didn't even care about the Daozu tree. They rushed directly to the ancestral court. However, the ancestors of the Xian people, who had just opened the ancestral court, were petrified. Chapter 1746. The outside world was deathly silent. Everyone guessed that something big must have happened to the Xian people's ancestral court. Otherwise, the Daozu would not have stayed put for so long. As expected, the Xian people's ancestral court's ancestor did not even care about the Daozu tree. He rushed to the ancestral court and blasted open the tightly shut doors. The ancestral court was extremely important to a tribe. It was the root of all immortal orthodoxies and the source of the tribe's power. The Xian people's ancestral court was naturally terrifying. It was also the place where the Xian people's ancestral court's ancestor secluded himself all year round. He would not open the ancestral court unless something big happened. The Xian people's ancestor was majestic, terrifying, and powerful. When he released his aura, it suppressed the entire immortal continent and even spread to the surrounding great continents. It was hard to imagine what level the Xian people's ancestors' strongest combat power was at. One should know that since the Emperor Road disappeared, the Xian people's ancestor had obviously grown stronger. But now, his terrifying and majestic body was trembling slightly. Even though the Xian people's ancestor tried his best to control his emotions, he could not help but tremble. His cold eyes flashed with a mournful light. The scene in front of him was hard to accept. The Xian people's sect master was nursing a grievance. On his way back, the Xian people's ancestor thought of the worst possible scenario, but he did not expect it to be this bad. The ancestral court had been invaded. Since the Xian people established their religion, such a ridiculous thing had never happened. The world outside the ancestral court was dead silent. One after another, the Daozu overlords who were sleeping in the great continent's life springs died. Their primordial spirits were extinguished. Their bodies withered. Daozu overlords were not the only ones here. There was also a group of Daozu overlords. This group of overlords had extremely long lives and had been sleeping in the ancestral court all this time. But now, hundreds of overlords were dead. Their primordial spirits were extinguished. Ark, the Xian people's ancestor, roared into the sky. An indescribable tragedy had happened in the ancestral court. A group of the Xian people's top forces had been slaughtered. This was unbearable pain. Most of these people were his disciples. Now, their primordial spirits had been extinguished. It was obvious that the overlords had killed their primordial spirits. Boom! The great earth of the Xian people trembled violently. Heaven-shaking divine sounds exploded from various great realms, accompanied by boundless killing intent that drowned out the great continent. Moreover, even the space outside the realm exploded, and the great stars in the heavens all exploded. It was clear to see just how furious the ancestors of the Xian people were. The scene of a terrifying giant going berserk was too frightening. This was a boundless calamity. In the eyes of the heroes of the Xian people, everyone was trembling. They were mad with hatred, and their eyes were bursting with bloody light. Who did it? Who was it? Who was it that infiltrated the ancestral court? Who was it that massacred the Xian people? Their methods were too ruthless. Some people felt that this was the bloody revenge of the celestial court. Otherwise, who in the world would have such a great enmity with the Xian people? Suyin wiped off his cold sweat. The impact they had on the Xian people was far less than the tragedy of the ancestral court. Even if one Daozu died, it would be a heavy loss for the tribes, not to mention the Xian people. Their foundation was inconceivably powerful. The ancestral court was breached, and its peak forces were massacred. Even the ancestors of the Xian people couldn't bear it, and walked all the way to the depths of the ancestral court. The world of the ancestral court was originally glorious and filled with endless treasures, but now, not even a strand of hair was left. Who? He roared, and his eyes widened in anger. He suspected that a prehistoric big brother had killed his way in and invaded the ancestral court to take revenge on the Xian people. Back then, when they attacked the Celestial Court branch in the Nine Cauldrons Prefecture, they also formed this kind of supreme killing intent. However, the cycle of karma had now fallen on this race. Who did it? The ancestors of the Xian people roared, and their hair danced in the wind. This group of peak forces was silent in the life spring, sealing their vitality. Moreover, there were no fluctuations of battle here. This meant that the person who had infiltrated was very powerful. They killed their way in silently and secretly destroyed the primordial spirits of all the Xian people's experts. This was unbearable for the ancestors of the Xian people. It was too sullen and humiliating. At the same time, the races of the underworld were frightened. They rejoiced that the celestial court had chosen the Xian people. Otherwise, their ancestral court would also be in big trouble. This old monster is going crazy. Su Yan's eyes were cold. Back then, the ancestors of the Xian people were so domineering. Together with the master of the underworld and the ancestor of the wondrous heaven sect, they attacked the celestial court branch and caused a bloody catastrophe. Now, he was filled with anger and wanted to destroy the world. The old leader was also shocked. If not for Dao Shui holding the line, they would have poked a hornet's nest. Who would have thought that the Xian people had such a frightening foundation? The foundation of a peak immortal orthodoxy was not to be ignored. Suyin, hurry up. The old leader was about to finish his breakthrough, but he had to find a way to take the Daozu tree away. In fact, even if Dao Shuyi was the descendant of the ancient celestial emperors and was unparalleled in power, he was still suppressed by the environment of the undying celestial domain. Suyin was also very anxious. He used all his strength and all his methods, but he still could not get close to the Daozu tree. The more Su Yin suppressed it, the more terrifying the power of the Daozu tree was. Countless Xian people's ancestors were reviving and turning into a protective light, blocking Su Yan's power. I understand now. An old antique outside saw the clue and exclaimed, "The Xian people's ancestor has imprinted his own imprint on the Daozu tree. He wants to use this tree to advance further in the future." The leaves of the Daozu tree were useless to the Xian people's ancestor. He was already at the peak of the Daozu realm. No amount of Daozu tree leaves would be of any use to him. However, if he could use the entire tree, he might be able to achieve a terrifying effect. This was a terrifying event. After all, the environment of this world was stronger. Once the Xian people's ancestor grasped the opportunity to advance further, it was hard to imagine how terrifying he would be in the future. Once the environment of the universe returned, who knew what the future would be like? In short, if that day came, and someone really did take the first step, the impact of this event would be too great. Oh no, Su Yan's face darkened. He vaguely sensed the aura of the Daozu tree shaking in the distant continent. It was definitely not just one or two. There were dozens of old monsters rushing over, and they were getting closer and closer to the immortal continent. Su Yan's heart sank. He originally wanted to delay the Xian people's ancestor, but he did not expect the Lord of the Underworld and the others to return. Just as Su Yan caught hold of this aura, the land of the immortal continent began to shake. Let's do it. Su Yan instantly made a decision. The heaven burial jar started spinning with a rumble and charged toward him. At the same time, the Xian people's ancestral land's strongest foundation was revived. Even the vast ancestral land was blazing with light. Once the foundation was no longer suppressed by the heaven burial jar, the Xian people would enter their strongest era, and the ancestral land would shine with immortal radiance. Is he crazy? The Xian people's ancestral land's strongest state can stop the Daozu tree. For the sake of the Daozu tree, this madman can't care about anything else. What do you know? The Lord of the Underworld and the others have returned. They're infinitely close to the immortal continent. Without the support of the supreme treasure, even if 2 more Daozu from the celestial court come, they won't be able to escape death. The storm in the outside world was getting more and more shocking. Dozens of Daozu giants crossed one continent after another, and the terrifying creatures in the sky ran amok. The commotion was definitely more terrifying than a few decades ago. The 3,000 continents in the core were filled with the killing intent of giants, sweeping through the universe and the stars, causing the immortal continent to tremble even more violently. Shut off the foundation of the tribes, an old ancestor of the Xian people growled. Something big had happened in their ancestral land. But no matter what, the ancestors of the Xian people had already gone to deal with it. They couldn't possibly give Su Yan and the old leader any chance of survival. They had to guide the Lord of the Underworld and the other giants into the Xian people to kill Su Yan. Suppress. At the same time, a loud explosion sounded in the Xian people's ancestral land. Under Su Yan's push, the heaven burial jar exploded. It didn't look like a jar, but more like a huge wormhole in the universe, covering the sky and covering the sun. Boom! The blood-colored jar was pressed down. Endless heaven burial runes flashed on the ancient jar, glowing with the power of the origin. It caused Su Yan's flesh shell to rumble. Su Yan was pleasantly surprised. It was indeed the most precious treasure of the heaven burial cave. As the 33rd generation disciple of the heaven burial cave, Su Yan's physique was completely unrestrained. He merged with the heaven burial jar, and the jar became a little frightening. It was as if it was swallowing a corner of the universe and burying the river of time. No, the experts of the Xian people cried out in despair. They saw the ancestral mark on the Daozu tree dimming at lightning speed. The heaven burial jar was about to swallow the entire Daozu tree. Their hearts were bleeding. This was an ultimate precious medicine that had long matured and been complete. Its value was boundless. It's this evil creature. He's matured and possesses a certain amount of Daozu's power. At this moment, the immortal continent rumbled violently. Howls rang out everywhere. All living beings in the universe were trembling. A large number of experts were paralyzed and trembling on the ground. This was the passage of terrifying creatures that filled the sky, forming a supreme pressure that swept across the continents and looked down on everything. Dozens of Daozu tree rushed over. The immortal continent was suppressed. Incomparably suffocating waves swept across hundreds of continents and drowned out the outer space. Countless creatures trembled. They felt that the immortal continent was about to sink. My little brother's disciple killed my son. I'm going to grind your bones to dust. The golden turtle ancestor roared. What was unbelievable was that Su Yin dared to attack the Xian people in just a few decades. Did he eat the immortal emperor's guts? Daozu tree? There are also giants who let out trembling voices. They saw that the heaven burial jar was about to swallow a sacred tree. This was the legendary Daozu tree. Heaven and earth trembled. The sun and moon sank. The dozens of Daozu tree creatures' eyes turned red. Just as they were about to attack Su Yin, they were shocked. Their gazes focused on the ancestral court of the ancestral hall at the same time. The Xian people's ancestral court was extremely vast and magnificent. It stretched as far as the eye could see. Although it looked like a hall from the outside, it was too vast. It was densely covered in endless nomological patterns. The boundless fury of the Xian people's ancestor illuminated the slightly dark ancestral court world. He rushed to the deepest part. He also saw a woman with fluttering sleeves standing on top of a huge array platform. Although the formation platform was riddled with holes, it still contained indescribable space-time power. Moreover, the aura that filled the entire formation platform was so heavy that it was suffocating. It was as if the universe's boundary wall was pressing down on this place. You destroyed the realm crossing platform. You deserve to die, the Xian people's ancestor roared. The platform connected to the immortal world had been destroyed. This was the ancestral court's greatest treasure. This was the realm crossing platform. Even the emperor race had to pay a huge price to forge it. However, this realm crossing platform was riddled with holes by the Dao Shui. It was almost sinking. Similarly, the realm crossing platform was very sturdy. Even something as powerful as the Dao Shui could not completely destroy it. Roar! The Xian people's ancestor let out a loud roar. His aura filled the entire ancestral court world as he charged toward the Dao Shui. The Dao Shui raised her head. Her calm eyes looked at the Xian people's ancestor who was charging over. Her actions were somewhat frightening. She raised her arm, and her sleeves fluttered. With a rumble, she pressed forward. A corner of her sleeve pressed down. She wanted to suppress the Xian people's ancestor. Chapter 1747. Everyone was terrified, so much so that they were stunned. The Xian people's experts also widened their eyes. At this moment, they finally understood what kind of confidence the expert who attacked the ancestral court had. Even the Overlord of the underworld and the others were stunned. The woman who stood on the dilapidated world crossing platform had her sleeves fluttering in the wind, exuding a mysterious aura. It was as if she was standing in another world, exuding a peerless magnificence. She swung her sleeves forward. It seemed like she was going to suppress the Xian people's ancestor directly. This group of experts was stunned. How strong was this woman? What orthodoxy did she come from? Could she be an expert of the Celestial Court who survived in the past? One had to know that during the Celestial Court's heyday, the Xianhuang heavenly region was too prosperous and dazzling. If it wasn't for the final battle of the Emperor Road 1,000,000 years ago, when the Celestial Court sent out billions of troops, who could do anything to the Celestial Court? In that same battle, the Celestial Court's elites were sent out. Those who remained were known as the descendants of the Celestial Court. The bloody battle a million years ago was still vivid in their minds. However, if the Celestial Court's indomitable experts were still alive in the world, it was not a good thing. Of course, it was too early to think about this. The battle had not yet begun. You dare to destroy the realm-crossing platform. The primogenitor of the immortal race roared. His aura had already reached the peak of his domain. He was very clear how terrifying this mysterious woman was. This was the world-crossing platform, and she could even cause it to be riddled with holes. This woman's combat prowess was definitely at the peak of this world. The realm-crossing platform could withstand the suppression of endless laws and order and lead to the celestial world. This item was priceless. It wasn't something that could be forged just because one wanted to. The price one had to pay was simply too shocking. Now that it was destroyed, although it could be repaired, it would exhaust all the immortal materials. Even the immortal race wouldn't be able to afford it. This really provoked the Cien people's ancestor. This was the realm-crossing platform. Those who did not understand its value would never know what it meant when it was destroyed. Boom! The Cien people's ancestral court shook violently. Daozu's heaven's might leaked out, forming a shocking scene of the void exploding. As for the sleeve that came pressing down from the sky, it was infinitely enlarged and blazed. It was as if a corner of the heavens had collapsed. It was so grand that it instantly shattered the terrifying energy body of the Cien people's ancestor and pressed down on his body. In an instant, the Cien people's ancestral court trembled violently. It was about to explode. The auras released by both sides were too powerful. The immortal race primogenitor continuously became stronger, his blood essence boundless, unmatched order gushing out. Facing the incoming sleeve, he chose to use his greatest strength to block it. But even so, in the shocked eyes of the people of the world, they could still see immortal race's ancestors' body trembling. This scene was even more serious than the collapse of the heavens and earth. Great cracks covered ancestral court, as if it couldn't hold on and was about to explosively retreat. The Cien people's ancestral court was in chaos. The experts cried out in horror. This was an invincible ancestor, but he could not withstand the suppression of Dao Shuyi's sleeve at all. He seemed to be carrying the sea of stars on his back. His body trembled and showed signs of collapse. How terrifying was Dao Shuyi's battle power? If it could really suppress the Cien people's ancestor with a single sleeve, it could be called the most powerful god of war in this world. Boom! In an instant, an old monster with a terrifying chi made his move. He formed a huge seal and pressed down on Su Yan. He wanted to seize the Daozu tree. The Cien people's ancestor had encountered a powerful enemy. This was the best opportunity to make a move. Suppress, Su Yan roared. The heaven-burying jar's power was getting stronger and stronger. Suddenly, it outlined a corner of the burial ground era and shook the universe. Under the shocked gazes of the outside world, the Daozu tree dimmed. It was completely suppressed by the heaven-burying jar. As the jar sank, the Daozu tree was suppressed inside. Puff! Su Yan was also attacked by a terrifying attack. The heaven-burying cave that was fused with him shook violently. His body was attacked by lightning. His chi and blood were in turmoil. Blood flowed from his throat. He almost fell to the ground. What? The heaven-sealing sect's ancestors' face darkened. Su Yan could withstand his attack. At the same time, he had also caught that Su Yan had an extremely powerful heavy weapon hidden in his body that had blocked his killing power. Otherwise, that attack would have been enough to destroy Su Yan. The people outside were also shocked. Did Su Yan really have what it took to fight the Daozu tree? He could withstand the Daozu tree's attack without being destroyed. What kind of foundation did he have? Old thing. Su Yan's expression was cold. His bloodstained body was absorbing the power of the heaven-burying cave's spring to nourish his injured body and strengthen his declining source of life. Wong. The heaven-burying urn floated above his head, showering him with a rain of light, making him look even stronger than before. He stood there with his head held high, exuding a majestic aura that could devour the world shocking the entire immortal heavenly domain. What kind of situation was this? What kind of background was this? In the ancestral land of the Sien people, a group of terrifying giants was entrenched. Even the starry sky was dyed red. Boundless killing intent surged. Hundreds of continents had to crawl. However, Su Yin, who had only grown up for a short period of time, stood in the middle. His hair danced in the wind, and he was extremely powerful. Not to mention that Su Yin had used some external force, but he had used his qualifications and confidence to stand here and look down on the world. Feng Tian's sex ancestor's expression was cold. He knew how terrifying the heaven-burying jar was. If the heaven-burying jar was floating here, then the prehistoric big brother of the celestial court might be here too. He raised his vigilance. Could it be that the top experts of the celestial court were not in the Xianhuang universe? The golden turtle's expression was cold. He stared at Su Yin and said coldly, "You're just a little bug. Have you become a demon? I'll kill you first, then help the Sien people's ancestor to deal with that mysterious woman." Old Turtle. Su Yan's eyes fell on the golden turtle's ancestor. At the same time, Su Yan's aura surged to the limit. All the external forces that he could use were revived. His strongest weapon now was the heaven-burying jar. "No, you're not an expert of the Sien people." At this moment, a giant's expression changed slightly as he let out an earth-shaking sound. His gaze fell upon the body of the old leader who was undergoing the tribulation. He saw the majestic power of 10,000 Daos being unsealed, and the overflowing divine light filling the air. Boom! In an instant, they raised their hands and rushed up. They wanted to tear apart the heavenly tribulation and kill the old leader. One should know that the Daozu was an ultimate giant. They could reverse the heavenly tribulation and change its path. Breakthrough, the old leader roared. His gray hair danced in the wind. The majestic flesh shell was revived. The power of the myriad Daos merged into one, as if it had evolved into the primitive divine power. In an instant, the sky was shattered, and the entire space was shattered. The heavenly tribulation exploded. It couldn't withstand the old leader's terrifying divine power. The blood in his body was monstrous, flooding the universe. The divine power was endless, shaking the outer space. Boom! Everyone in the world was shocked. A Daozu was born, and he was peerlessly powerful. The power of several Daozu experts who attacked was directly shattered. It was as if an ancient saint had appeared out of nowhere, shaking the ancestral land of the Sien people. Kill! In an instant, a dozen giants joined forces. Their auras were infinitely powerful. They wanted to kill the old leader. "I'm coming." Su Yin rushed over and stood together with the old leader. The two powerhouses, one old and one young, revived the heaven burial jar and blocked the attacks of the Daozu's power. The Lord of the Underworld and the other top giants were silent from the beginning to the end. They scanned the Sien people's ancestral court with uncertain eyes. Could she be? The mysterious heaven sex ancestor's face was extremely cold. He recalled a legend that the guardian of the Emperor Road was a woman. Could it be her? Since she was here, it meant that the Emperor Road had really disappeared, and a new era was about to begin. To the Lord of the Underworld and the others, Su Yin was no longer important. As long as they could kill the Dao Shui, they couldn't escape at all. But the problem was that the Dao Shui was a little scary. The immortal progenitor tried his best, but still couldn't stop the Dao calligraphy ritual. His sleeves were like treasures from the heavens, but they still wanted to seal the entire ancestral hall. One could imagine how terrifying the Dao of the Dao calligraphy ritual was. Slash! At the last moment, the ancestor roared. The energy in his body surged, and his hair danced wildly. The immortal slaying sword on his back was finally revived from its slumber. In an instant, a terrifying sword light filled the sky, and a huge hole was formed in the ancestral court. This was the immortal slaying sword, known as one of the 10 most powerful treasures in the undying heavenly domain. Its attack power was unparalleled. It hadn't been used yet, But the moment the Xian people's ancestor was revived, its killing light was like an ocean, shattering the Dao Shi's technique. One corner of the sleeves was torn. This showed how fierce this sword embryo was. It also showed the power to slaughter all the immortals in the world. The Xian people's ancestor's body resonated with the immortal slaying sword and unleashed a terrifying attack toward the Dao Shi. The sleeves exploded and a snow-white palm stretched out. This palm covered the sky and the earth and showed the abyss of the great Tao. It was like the hand of an emperor from outer space. It was quite terrifying and shocking. Of course, this wasn't enough. A mark flashed between the eyebrows of the Dao Shi. It was like the carrier of the heavenly emperor's great Tao, and it was revived in an instant. How is this possible? The expressions of the king of hell and the others changed greatly. Was the Dao Shi even more powerful than the prehistoric Big Brother? The entire ancestral court collapsed. The snow-white palm and the blazing fist didn't collide, but the energy from the collision collided. In an instant, the Xian people's ancestor trembled violently. Dense blood light gushed out of his pores, and he was about to be torn apart. "Ah, you forced me to do this!" The Xian people's ancestor roared. He had completely changed and was like a peerless demon who had rushed out from hell. In an instant, his figure enlarged, and he was immeasurably magnificent. Along with this, the Xian people's ancestral land welcomed a great change. Suddenly, a terrifying aura filled the air, an aura that could make even the giants tremble in fear was released. The outer space changed again, and it was as if the projection of a huge plane was projected. It was very blurry, and no image could be seen clearly. It was only a corner of a huge outline, and it filled the outer space. The immortal world. Su Yan's eyes widened in anger. This was a blurry projection of the immortal world plane. It was very terrifying and ancient, and it had the divine power to descend above the heavens. From this moment on, the Dao Shi seemed a little weak. Not only her, but all the giants were panicking. They all felt weak, and they all had the urge to bow down and worship as if they were going on a pilgrimage. Wasn't the passage between the two worlds broken? Could it be because of the disappearance of the Emperor Road? Or could it be that the Xian people's ancestor, like the reincarnation emperor, had a special fate that could draw on the power of the immortal world? Of course, this fate was definitely not as abnormal as the reincarnation emperor's. The vague outline of a corner of the power was enough to make ghosts and gods weep. Su Yan was very anxious. The development of the situation was shocking. The ancestor is invincible, and his magic power is boundless. The Xian people shouted excitedly. What was invincibility? At this moment, they really understood the heavenly power that dominated the universe, and the great power that came down along the long river of the universe. It made people's souls tremble, and they all wanted to kneel down and worship. Chapter 1748. What's that? It was a shocking scene. The old antiques of various races widened their eyes in disbelief. The celestial state had changed completely. Even though it was just a projection of the celestial world's mark, it already possessed unparalleled heavenly might, as if it was dominating the billions of lives in the lower world. Everyone was terrified, feeling a chill run down from head to toe. They were truly scared stiff. What exactly was behind immortal race's ancestor? The unparalleled celestial might spread, making them tremble in fear. It was as if their fate was being suppressed again. It was indescribable. They felt that the world was about to fall. The unparalleled suppression made them feel suffocated. Even the big shots were shocked. They felt that there was a higher world that could look down on them. The influence was too frightening. It shocked the whole world. What was the background of the Xian people? What was behind them? Could the legends be true? In the undying heavenly domain, some old monsters who had lived for a long time were shocked. They had seen some incomplete ancient books and knew about the existence of the celestial world. However, the incomplete content recorded in those ancient books was too long ago. Could the legends be true? Could there be a powerful background behind the Xian people? No matter what, these old monsters were frightened. Were the Xian people going to rise? If the thing behind them really surfaced, it would be more glorious than the celestial court. Strictly speaking, the celestial world recorded in the incomplete ancient books was a universe of a higher level than the undying heavenly domain. The terrifying change shook the undying heavenly domain. The major regions couldn't stay calm. They wanted to verify it as soon as possible. Suyan's face was gloomy. He noticed a complicated mark flashing on the forehead of the Xian people's ancestor. He felt a familiar aura. It was the aura of the celestial world. Suyan had been to the celestial world before. He couldn't forget the aura of this world. Now, the mark that appeared on the forehead of the Xian people's ancestor captured the power of the celestial world. Could this be the exclusive mark obtained from being crowned king in one battle? Was a special fate recognized by the origin of the celestial world? If it was, could the supreme monarch race be crowned as a monarch race? Be careful. Suyan had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. There was a huge entity behind the Xian people's ancestor, causing his aura to become even more terrifying. He was like an emperor who controlled the heavens and was about to kill Dao Shui. The old leader's face turned ugly. What kind of power was this? What the hell was that thing behind the ancestors of the Xian people? Oof. Dao Shui snorted coldly. She stood with her hands behind her back. Suddenly, she also changed. Billions of great Dao order appeared behind her. It was as if billions of books of the great Dao were floating between heaven and earth. The moment they were opened, the chanting of sutras was like the sea. In the blink of an eye, the corner of the undying heavenly domain that had been suppressed by the projection of the immortal world began to rumble violently, resonating with the aura of the Book of Tao. Everyone was shocked. The divine sound of the great Tao rumbled and deafened their ears. This was the heavenly might that originated from the undying heavenly domain. It could also be considered the strongest great Tao of heaven and earth in the universe. Monster! Someone cried out loudly. Someone said that she was a monster. Just how profound was her Tao and magic? The undying heavenly domain's origin great Tao was resurrected to resist the suppression of a corner of the celestial realm. Suppress! The ancestor of the Xian people roared. The mark between his brows burned, triggering the projection of the immortal world. This huge corner of the world glowed and became clearer. It was as if it was looking down on the 3,000 great continents. In the blink of an eye, the universe trembled and the boundless territories shook. Then a world-destroying force came crashing down. One had to admit that it was terrifying and frightening. The stars in the sky exploded, and the world turned dark and eon. Who could survive this? Who could escape from this oppression? But the Dao Shui was still standing on the broken world crossing platform. Behind her, a majestic world appeared. Billions of books were about to materialize, chanting the strongest great Tao of heaven. Boom! The boundless sky was about to spin. Countless great Tao of heaven and earth appeared, resisting the suppression of the projection of the immortal world. The Dao Shui triggered the great Tao of order of the undying heavenly domain, resisting the projection of the immortal world. But even so, the great Tao of heaven and earth was being destroyed. The supreme projection of the immortal world was about to suppress the Dao Shui. Bastard! Suyan growled. His eyes were red. The Emperor Road had disappeared. Although its influence was still there, the projection of the immortal world could still be summoned. If this continued, wouldn't the Xian people's ancestors be truly invincible? The old leader was also worried. Could the Dao Shui withstand it? At the same time, the chaos in the Xian people's ancestral land was getting worse. Endless killing intent came crashing down. Almost a dozen giants had made their moves. A great battle broke out. The Xian people's ancestral land was shaking. Many cracks appeared, and the entire ancestral land was about to sink. The Xian people were anxious. They had no choice but to reactivate the heritage of the Xian people. They radiated the vast ancestral land world and strengthened it with the power of heaven and earth. This was to prevent a great destructive force from destroying the entire ancestral land. That jar is really scary. Where did it come from? The experts watching the battle from the outside were shocked. More than a dozen giants had joined forces to attack. The laws of order that burst out densely covered the entire space-time. Who could withstand it if it came crashing down? The Daozu would most likely die. However, the heaven-burying jar's performance was too shocking. Under the joint efforts of Su Yin and the old leader, the jar was extremely terrifying. The boundless heaven-burying power that poured down formed the heaven-burying field, which was about to devour all of the Daozu's power. Kill them, the Daozu experts who attacked one after another roared. What kind of existence were they? They were only facing the old leader who had just broken through to the Daozu level and Su Yin who was not at the Daozu level. Although they relied on the heaven-burying jar, if they couldn't defeat Su Yin and the old leader even after joining forces, they would become a laughingstock. Boom! The sky shattered. The sun and moon sank. The terrifying scene formed an energy tide that spread across dozens of continents. Under such suppression, the terrifying heaven-burying field was cracking. Endless killing and order energy was about to penetrate and kill Su Yin and the old leader's true bodies. The old leader pushed his qi and blood essence to form thousands of defensive postures to block the invasion of the violent energy. He was very powerful and extraordinary. His flesh shell burned like a sacred furnace. His qi and blood soared into the sky, forcibly resisting the invasion of the killing power. However, his body was also shaken. Boom! The heaven-burying jar shook violently, operating a terrifying power to resist the great killing power. You guys leave here first. At this moment, Dao Shi's voice was heard. I'll stay and find out when the celestial world will descend. You guys return to the tribes as soon as possible. Billions of books bloomed in the place where the ancestral court had been destroyed. They read the principles of heaven and earth and the mysteries of the Great Path. They included all the Great Path order books in the heavens. The scene was quite incredible. Books sputtered, forming a torrent of scriptures that suddenly rushed out. Come out! The Xian people's ancestors wanted to stop it, but it was too late. This torrent of scriptures cut off the power of a dozen giants who were attacking the heaven-burying jar. It also created a void zone. The terrifying creatures in the sky were furious. In their eyes, Su Yin and the old leader seemed to be separated by a long river of time and space. Let's go, the old leader roared. He spread his arms and tore open a huge rift in time and space. They couldn't stay here for long. Once the Lord of the Underworld and the others got involved, they wouldn't be able to stop them. If they were suppressed in the Xian people's ancestral land, the consequences would be even worse. Su Yin and the old leader retreated quickly, leaving the celestial continent. Where do you think you're going? The terrifying creatures were furious. Their main goal in this battle was to capture Su Yin. Whether it was the heaven-burying jar or the Daozu tree, both made them jealous. This group of terrifying creatures also rushed out of the Xian people's ancestral land and chased after Su Yin and the old leader. In the process, the golden turtle ancestor also erupted. Its qi and blood were vigorous. As the most ancient creature in the undying heavenly domain, the golden turtle ancestor was undeniably terrifying. It was qualified to be on the same level as the Lord of the Underworld and the others. However, the mysterious Heaven Sect's ancestors didn't leave. Their faces were dark. Dao Shi's strength made them wary. If they couldn't kill this kind of person, the consequences would be unimaginable. Don't forget that the Celestial Court still had a prehistoric big brother. Therefore, Dao Shi had to be killed. Kill! At this moment, the Xian people's ancestral land was raging. One after another, terrifying giants rushed toward the Xian people's ancestral land, choosing to join forces with the Xian people's ancestors. The terrifying and boundless catastrophe shook the undying heavenly domain. A woman had attracted a group of terrifying creatures to attack her. One had to admit that this scene was terrifying. Suppress! The Xian people's ancestors roared one after another. The mark between their eyebrows was burning so fiercely that it was about to explode. At this moment, the blurry plane of the immortal world seemed to have turned into a tangible object. It might suppress the sea of stars in the sky. The entire world was trembling, and a great collapse was about to occur. Countless power of the great Tao of heaven and earth's order collapsed. The undying heavenly domain seemed to be suppressed in a short period of time. At the same time, the 3,000 continents at the core shook violently. The ancestral land of thousands of sects rumbled as its power was awakened. The ancestral court glowed, sending out a warning sound. It was a shocking scene. It was as if the entire sky was falling. Who could withstand this kind of heavenly might? Su Yin, who was already far away from the immortal continent, was shocked. He looked back and saw the sky collapse. The outer space was completely shattered. An unparalleled aura was suppressing the Tao Shui. Even the blurry projection of the immortal world's plane descended with a supreme will, wanting to make the Tao Shui bow. Boom! In an instant, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. It was as if the end of the universe had arrived. The might of the immortal world's plane changed the Tao Shui. It turned into an empress, whose might shook the past, present, and future. Some things couldn't be touched. Otherwise, it would lead to a world-ending disaster. What kind of empress might was this? It was so grand that it shook the undying heavenly domain. It was as if the empress who had been sleeping for a long time had come back to life. The entire world fell into silence. Countless creatures froze, and their primordial spirits were about to fall. In fact, even the lords of hell who were charging over were trembling. This was a divine might that was hard to resist, and they were forced to kneel down and kowtow to it. Chapter 1749. The Emperor's descent shook the world. Heaven and earth returned to silence, and the vast starry sky dimmed. Only the figure standing above the immortal continent illuminated the starry sky and looked down on the undying heavenly domain. This was an extremely grand aura. Even the saints trembled in fear. Countless living beings knelt on the ground. Their wills were empty, as if the light of their primordial spirits had been extinguished. Even the experts of the Xian people, the paragons, and the Quasi-Daozu all knelt down. They had lost their wills. This was not a matter of whether they were willing or not. This emperor's might was too terrifying. It could swallow the entire, undying heavenly domain. All the living beings in the world trembled. Even the powerful Lord of Hell broke out in cold sweat. Their faces were pale, and they were trembling. They could still barely maintain their own consciousness, barely holding on and not kneeling down. In fact, their trembling bodies had already betrayed them. Each and every one of them was like a weak ant, not daring to look directly at the Book of Tao that was like an emperor in the sky. Ah! The ancestors of the Xian people screamed. Their terrifying bodies were also trembling. If not for the blurry projection of the immortal world giving them power, they would have knelt here. After all, this emperor's might was directed at them. The whole world fell silent. All the sects fell silent. Some old antiques trembled and whispered, "Emperor, wasn't this too surreal? Didn't they say there was no emperor in the world? Why was there such a terrifying existence? Shouldn't the environment of this world not give birth to someone of this level? Why was she born again?" One had to know that the world was forever silent. All the great Daos were under her feet. She had become the most invincible existence. Even the projection of the immortal world was rumbling violently. No matter how strong the aura from this blurry corner of the plane was, it was still distorted in the face of the emperor. It was as if it was going to be destroyed. Everyone in the world was terrified. Even the Lord of Hell was in despair. A true emperor had appeared. Who could match her? The emperor's realm was too vague. No one knew what level they were at. The immortal world needed an emperor, but how did the emperor of this world come to be? No, she's not an emperor. The mysterious heaven sect progenitor was the first to react. He vaguely realized that this imperial pressure wasn't coming from Dao Shui's body, but from the Tao and law behind him. Hundreds of millions of books were arranged, chanting the sound of the great Tao. All of a sudden, a figure appeared amidst the trillions of books. It was only the back of a figure, but it also possessed a peerless emperor's might that swept through the past, present, and future. It shook the river of time, and shook the vague projection of the immortal world. The blurry figure seemed as if it didn't exist. It was extremely unreal, and it seemed as if it was standing in the long river of history. However, even the slightest bit of power from his back was enough to shake the heavens. Some things could not be touched, some cultivators could not be suppressed, and some people could not be judged by the Emperor's fate. Even if it was a projection of the world of immortals, even if it originated from the world of immortals, once it was suppressed, some terrible things would be alarmed. Dao Shui's blood was boiling, and the essence blood of the ancient celestial emperors was circulating. She was clearly different now. Even the irregular scenes produced by her bloodline and great Dao carried emperor might, shaking up the world. Then, the Xian people's ancestor turned pale. He realized that the blurry plane of the immortal world had become clearer. It manifested on its own and appeared on its own. It was going to suppress and kill the existence that resisted the will of the immortal world. This was an uncontrollable change. The land of the immortal continent was sinking. The plane that was so majestic that it was difficult to see it from afar still looked blurry, but it was truly sinking. It was truly suppressing and killing the experts that resisted the immortal world. Rumble! Bloody holes appeared one after another on the land of the immortal continent. Endless rain of blood poured down, indicating the arrival of a great calamity. All living beings trembled, and human lives were worthless. The great world was about to collapse, and all living beings were about to wither away. This was a judgment that originated from the heavens. It was difficult to defy and change. Seal! Dao Shui's hands suddenly rose. In an instant, the space-time that was riddled with holes suddenly closed. The Emperor rode. The sword Sek's ancestor's body trembled. He saw a blurry path appear. It cut through the heavens and blocked the projection of the immortal world. Then he was horrified. This woman was the guardian of the Emperor Road. Her background was terrifying. The suppression of heaven and earth is really severe. Dao Shui's face was a little pale. She had used up a lot of energy to attack against the environment. At the same time, the world returned to normal. The series of scenes just now were like a dream. Then, the people in the outside world were so shocked that they were speechless. The land of the immortal continent sank and shattered. Obviously, the impact just now was too strong for the continent to bear. When the aura dissipated, it couldn't help but collapse. Even more than half of the ancestral land of the Xian people had collapsed. Countless people's hair stood on end. The land of the immortal continent had really collapsed. The ancestral land was about to be completely destroyed. The Xian people's losses were too great. If it weren't for the fact that their ancestor was still alive, what was the difference between this and the extinction of their race? The Xian people's ancestor's chest rose and fell violently. His eyes were bloodshot. Destroyed. The land of the immortal continent was destroyed. What are you looking at? Dao Shui stood between heaven and earth. She was still as magnificent as ever. She pointed at a group of people and shouted, "You or all of you attack." The Lord of the Underworld and the others were terrified. The power that Dao Shui displayed just now was too strong. However, the Odd Sky Sek's ancestor said in a low voice, "Don't worry. She can't use that state again. The environment is suppressing her. No matter how strong and invincible she is, she will be suppressed by the environment. We won't lose if we work together." Although this woman was too demonic, they didn't think that Dao Shui could be so heaven-defying that she could kill the most powerful Daozu cultivators like them. Moreover, it was hard to say who would win. Now that things had developed to this point, they wouldn't be satisfied until one of them died. Is it over? The projection of the immortal realm has disappeared. Su Yan, who had left the continent, sensed the changes in the land of the immortal continent. He calmed down a little. After all, Dao Shui was a descendant of the ancient celestial emperors. She wasn't easy to deal with. These Dogskin plasters are really troublesome. We have to get out of here as soon as possible, the old leader said in a low voice. Behind them, more than 10 terrorist leaders were chasing after them. Along the way, they caused a huge storm. The continents were unable to calm down, and the people were terrified. They were worried that they would fight for supremacy. Otherwise, their land of survival would be destroyed. Stop them for me. Sect Master Feng Tian and the others worked together. Their killing power was released, and they attacked Su Yin and the old leader. Even though they were far away, Su Yin could still sense the power behind him. This was a group of terrorist leaders working together. How earth-shattering was that? Even the heaven-burying jar guarding them was trembling. However, this jar was very shocking. Its true power was most likely not like this. If not for the environment suppression, the heaven-burying jar should be able to release even more terrifying power. These old bastards have really gone crazy. Su Yin was furious. The power of this group of terrifying beings awakened, forming a scene of destruction. The endless territories trembled violently, and countless living beings were blasted apart. Ah! The grand heavenly realm experts screamed as their bodies shattered. Their eyes turned red as they saw the ground filled with corpses and flesh. A city exploded. The number of people who died was immeasurable. Bastard! The old leader was also furious. They attacked without caring about the consequences. They wanted to destroy a continent and kill billions of living beings. Su Yan's hair danced in the wind. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He really wanted to kill them all. Kiki, Su Yin, and the others died because of you. The golden turtle said coldly, if you continue to run, no matter where you run to, you won't be able to escape. On the contrary, the more we attack, the more people will die. The cruel words shook the world. The endless territories trembled, and all living beings fell into despair. Once the Daozu creatures went crazy, who knew how many living beings would die? It was like a bloody apocalypse drowning the world. You old turtle! Su Yin was enraged. He said furiously, the reason why I gave birth to you and raised you up is to start a massacre. You are not even comparable to a beast. The golden turtle's expression was extremely gloomy. His eyes were too frightening. His entire body resonated, and in an instant, a sea of blood flowed. The entire world was filled with large cracks, and countless cultivators had died. Some great sects were implicated. More than half of their ancestral grounds sank. The surviving experts roared in grief. This was too much. Who did they provoke to encounter such a disaster? Bastard, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth kill. The old leader roared angrily. His Saint Chi burned and surged out in an instant. It gathered in the void and evolved into a terrifying fist. It traversed across a large continent and blasted toward a distant place. You dare! The heaven-sealing sect's primogenitors' eyes almost popped out of their sockets, because the source was the heaven-sealing sect's territory. But it was too late to say anything. The old leader's fist had already blasted out. This attack was too frightening. It could kill across a large continent. Who is it? A single stone stirred up 1,000 ripples in the peaceful Feng Tian religion. The experts from the various races were greatly alarmed. The originally clear sky was suddenly overflowing with terror. A terrifying fist was smashing down. Enemy attack. The experts from the heaven-sealing sect didn't even have the chance to roar before the terrifying fist came crashing down. The ancestral ground of the heaven-sealing sect was torn apart, creating a huge bloody hole. The experts guarding the sect exploded into pieces along with their bodies. The scene was too frightening. The experts from the heaven-sealing sect were scared silly. A bloody hole was blasted open in the ancestral ground. Boom! Su Yan's heaven-burying jar also unleashed a torrent of energy. A large amount of heaven-burying energy blasted into the bloody hole, shattering the ancestral land of Feng Tian cult into pieces. The casualties were great, and the blood light surged into the sky. Who is it? Who is it? An old man from the heaven-sealing sect roared with bloodshot eyes. The ancestral ground was sinking. Too many things were destroyed, and the casualties were also great. Who did they offend? They were punched for no reason. Who was the one who did it? Who was the one who punched them? Well done. These old bastards couldn't suppress Su Yin, so they killed us to vent their anger. Too disgraceful. Kill. This is how it should be done. In this bloody continent, some people were roaring in their hearts. This was how it should be, blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth. Moreover, Su Yan's group belonged to the Celestial Court, but Progenitor Golden Turtle's group belonged to the immortal heavenly domain. Killing native creatures to vent their anger was too hateful. Chapter 1750. Roar. The roar exploded. Flames of fury overflowed into the sky and surged with killing intent, tearing apart the vast cosmos. The terrifying creature had gone mad. The heaven-sealing sex primogenitor roared. He was so angry that his body was trembling. The dome of heaven collapsed, and the entire blood-stained continent trembled. He was furious to the extreme and vented the flames of fury in his heart. He wanted to slaughter millions and millions of creatures with a single thought. The mountains and rivers were trembling violently and exploding. If it weren't for the heaven burial jar suppressing the heaven and earth and suppressing the primogenitor's fury, who knew how many creatures would have died? In short, the entire blood-stained continent could not calm down. Rumbling sounds were unceasingly heard in various regions. The heaven-sealing sect was in a miserable state. They were ambushed by two giants. Moreover, it was extremely sudden. The experts sleeping in their ancestral court had yet to awaken, and a small part of their ancestral land had already sunk. The number of casualties was incalculable. You all deserve to die. All of you deserve to die. None of you shall live. The heaven-sealing sex primogenitor was furious. Originally, he wanted to join forces to destroy the Celestial Court. But what happened now? The Cien people's continent had collapsed. Even with the cooperation of these giants, they still couldn't suppress Su Yan. What a disgrace. Let's go. The old chief retreated with Su Yan. He wanted to go to the void. Otherwise, who knew how many creatures would die? You won't be able to escape. No one can save you. More than 10 old antiques roared. Once Su Yan recovered, the collapse of the heaven-sealing sex ancestral land would be the beginning. This scourge could not be left alive and must be eliminated. Kill. The group of old freaks had gone mad, and they were simply washing the world with blood. Along the way, they caused even greater destruction. The dense and surging blood dyed the vast territory red, and the four seas and oceans were rumbling. The sun and moon were sinking. This group of old bastards, they have gone crazy. Why aren't the experts of the great sex coming back? Hurry up and suppress them. Otherwise, the disaster will spread and more people will die. Everyone roared. Some lucky survivors were so angry that their eyes were about to split open. Their clans had suffered an unexpected calamity. Their hearts were filled with grief and fury. The great continents were unable to calm down. After all, before a group of terrifying creatures, the masses were like ants. The casualties were too great. Bastard. This bloody scene infuriated some of the major sections. This was the core prefecture of the undying heaven realm. Every single prefecture was governed by a supreme sect. But now, more than a dozen continents were trembling violently, and blood was flowing everywhere. The leaders of the various races were all enraged. The sect leader roared, "Bastards! Do these lunatics really think that the undying heaven region is their own backyard?" More than 10 clans were furious. Their clans all had ancestral giants walk out, their faces gloomy. They crossed great provinces to protect the safety of the original creatures. It had to be said that this matter had escalated greatly. The golden turtle progenitor and the others seemed to have gone mad as they roared and screamed everywhere. The killing intent within their bodies leaked out uncontrollably. Wherever they went, all living beings would suffer and blood would flow into the sea. This enraged the masses. Some of the primogenitors wanted to kill their way over to demand an explanation, but progenitor Gold Turtle and the others were simply too fast. As they chased after Su Yan, a vast sea of order formed around them, sealing off heaven and earth. Rumble. The heaven-burying jar trembled violently as it was suppressed by the law of order. Su Yan, who was trying his best to control the heaven-burying jar, was bleeding from his nose and mouth. Fortunately, he had brought a saint spring from the immortal continent. allowing him to recover continuously. Although he and the old leader were strong, they were facing the ambush of more than 10 old monsters. They don't want us to leave. They want to trap us in the undying heaven realm. The old leader's face was ashen. The outer space was sealed, and no matter how strong the heaven-bearing jar was, it was still suppressed by the environment. It was impossible for them to kill their way over. The old leader's blood boiled as he shouted coldly, "Let's fight them to the end. Let's charge into their territories. I don't believe they will dare to kill us all." Suyin was also ruthless. Who were they afraid of? With the heaven-burying jar protecting them, they would not be threatened for a short period of time. In any case, they turned their spearhead and crossed the continents, charging towards the ancestral lands of their enemies. The terrifying collisions could not be calmed down along the way. The horrifying creatures in the sky went crazy. This was the sorrow of all living beings. They were completely unable to resist the supreme law of the world. This shocked the undying heaven realm, and at the same time, angered more and more races. They wanted to unite the realm. If they really united the undying heaven realm, it would be the greatest disaster for the undying heaven realm. From their current attitude, it was clear that these people would not treat the weak well. They're going too far. These old bastards can't even suppress the rising stars of the celestial court. Instead, they're venting their anger on the innocent. Where is the dignity of experts? Where is the demeanor of experts? Too despicable. Many old antiques were enraged. They had followed behind to watch the battle. It was obvious that the golden turtle did not want Su Yin and the others to leave. Wasn't the heaven-burying jar powerful? They did not believe that Su Yin could maintain the power of the heaven-burying jar forever. This matter was extremely urgent. If they could not control the situation, it would only get worse and worse. A group of experts was preparing to join forces and gather the experts of the Supreme Sects to stop the development of this battle. Big news. However, horrifying news was spread, causing a sensation in this chaotic world. Is it true? The ancestral land of the Dark Sect has sunk? Countless cultivators cried out in shock. This news was extremely shocking. The experts who were watching the battle along the way were terrified. Su Yin and the old leader were too cruel. They had charged all the way to the ancestral land of the Dark Sect, forcefully opened the ancestral land, and led a great calamity to fall on the Dark Sect. The entire Dark Sect was on the verge of collapsing. More than half of the ancestral land had sunk. Countless experts died tragically. Blood soaked the sky. The entire Darking prefecture was covered in blood. The ancestor of the race roared. He had never thought that Su Yin would dare to do this. After all, once such an existence invaded their ancestral land, it would lead to a devastating disaster. One had to know that not every race could be compared with the Xian people. This matter caused a great sensation in the undying heaven realm. Good job. These old turtles didn't care about the consequences in order to suppress Su Yin. They should be so daring. Destroy their ancestral land and let them know what we've been through. Many people shouted when they heard the news. They were excited and hoped that Su Yin could wipe out the ancestral lands of these forces. After all, the ancestor of the golden turtle and the others had attacked without caring about the consequences, which had really infuriated everyone. Let's fight in the extraterritorial realm. Some of the giants looked gloomy. They were really worried that Su Yan's next target would be them. Do you think we'll fight in the extraterritorial realm just because you said so? Su Yan laughed angrily and said, "It's too late now. You want to start a massacre? Let's see if your ancestral land can withstand it." "You worm." The ancestor of the golden turtle sneered and said, "You've really become a demon. Let's see how long you can be arrogant. Let's see how long the sky-burying jar can protect you." Kill. The ancestor of the golden turtle attacked instantly. This made the faces of some of the giants turn ugly. You're just a turtle without a clan, but we can't bear the consequences. Su Yin and the others are two lunatics. If they couldn't kill them in a short time, it would be a disaster for their clans. In the immortal heavenly domain, the immortal continent had sunk, and the peak war had begun. This could be said to be the most glorious battle ever. A woman who was close to being a demon fought against the Lord of Hell and the group of peak experts. It shocked the ancestors of all sects. At the same time, a series of continents in the undying heavenly domain were in chaos. The scale of the war escalated and spread out. In the end, a series of supreme sects were involved. Too many people died. It was hard to estimate the number. It's just a tortoise. How can it cause chaos? It had to be said that the primogenitors of the undying heavenly domain were infuriated. This was their motherland, the origin of all life. Wasn't he afraid of incurring the wrath of the heavens by causing such a ruckus? One had to know that the ancestor of the golden turtle was the most ancient of these experts. He also had the greatest authority. Therefore, these great sects hated the ancestor of the golden turtle. At the same time, shocking news continued to spread. The commotion it caused was getting more and more terrifying. A whole day passed. Su Yin went to all the great sections. His battle record was brilliant and terrifying. This was the ancestral land of the supreme sections. The news of the calamity caused great waves in the hearts of the people. Su Xianren was really rebuking the world. More than 10 terrifying leaders joined forces, but they couldn't suppress him for a whole day. Little bastard, I don't believe you can maintain your current state. You will die without a doubt. Even if my little brother comes, he won't be able to save you. The ancestor of the golden turtle roared in anger. How shocking was Su Yan's reserves. They didn't know beforehand that Su Yan had emptied most of his reserves in the Xian people. Although he had lost a lot of money, he had lost a lot. But the battle results were plentiful. Su Yan was infuriated. Killing intent shot out from his eyes. It was extremely cold. Why do you have to be angry? Patriarch Gold Turtle said coldly. You're just relying on an external object to give you the power of a Tao Father. But in the end, external power is still external power. Which Tao Father here can't crush you to death? An ant-like bug dares to jump up and down here. Even the heavens won't tolerate you if you don't die. It's just a turtle. What's the point of bickering with him? The old chief replied. You even stewed his son and ate it. It's fine to let him vent a bit. Roar. The ancestor of the golden turtle let out a deafening roar that shook the heavens and the earth. The vast universe was wailing. He had truly gone berserk. Even his true body had appeared. During the process, he suppressed the group of old monsters until their hair stood on end. The ancestor of the golden turtle was furious. No one doubted his battle prowess. He was stronger than any Daozu expert present. Boom! All of a sudden, space and time in the outer realm collapsed. A terrifying aura that made even the Daozu feel weak bloomed. They watched with trembling eyes as a figure rushed over from the outer realm, his aura shaking the entire universe. This figure was too frightening. It was filled with a peerless divine might, as if a supreme demon lord had descended from the primal chaos. Big Brother, Su Yin was ecstatic. He cried out in shock, causing the world to tremble. The prehistoric Big Brother had arrived, and his aura was even more shocking than before. His tall body faintly blossomed with a peerless divine might that could suppress the river of time. The old chief was shaken. He was also a Daozu, but he always felt that he wasn't on the same level as this Big Brother. The prehistoric Big Brother's physical body was too frightening. It was like a great killing machine that was lying horizontally in the void as he attacked, creating a scene of the outer verse collapsing along the way. Then, he arrived in front of the golden turtle. His blood chi surged, and he was endlessly terrifying. Little brother, the golden turtle's heart was instantly filled with fear. He revealed his true body and turned into a giant golden turtle. His claws and head also retracted as he resisted the prehistoric Big Brother's invincible fist. Chapter 1751. A chilly wind blew across the blood-stained continent, and the bloody aura spread out in all directions. All living beings died, and the apocalypse was born. Many great sects were paying close attention to this battle, and many ancestors of the peak races had already stepped out to contact a group of experts, preparing to stop the battle. If they were allowed to continue killing in the undying heavenly domain, their influence would only grow, and it would lead to chaos. At that time, the number of casualties would be immeasurable, and it would be a great loss to the undying heavenly domain in the future. However, who would have thought that Su Yin and the old chief would still be able to maintain the strongest defensive force, even after being chased by more than 10 giants? Moreover, they had even guided the disaster to land on their ancestral land. One had to admit that the terrifying creatures were too destructive to the world, and the great sects would not allow such a thing to happen. Once the casualties were too great, it would affect the future of the immortal sections. After all, the disciples of the immortal sects were all geniuses selected from the various continents. But no one would have thought that at this critical moment, a terrifying figure would appear from the outer space. He was tall and majestic, like a supreme overlord, and his eyes were sharper than the heavenly sabers. He had arrived, as if he had crossed the heavens to arrive, and rushed into the undying heavenly domain, causing the entire world to tremble. His peerless divine aura suppressed the might of the terrifying leaders. Once he made his move, he directly targeted the golden turtle ancestor. Heavens! All the experts in the world screamed, and their scalps went numb. One had to know that the golden turtle ancestor was not a weakling, and was one of the most ancient creatures in the world. It could be said that it had lived for billions of years, and had an eternal lifespan. The golden turtle ancestor's battle prowess was definitely extraordinary, but facing the prehistoric big brother, it made a move that stunned all the experts in the world. It turned into a huge turtle, and one had to admit that the golden turtle was too big. It was overflowing with holy light and looked very holy and majestic. The spiritual chi in its body was so abundant that it was hard to imagine. The golden turtle was a great tonic, but if it was a Daozu-level golden turtle, it would definitely be a rare tonic, and its value was unimaginable. It might even be comparable to an ultimate treasure medicine. It had to be known that the golden turtle race possessed extraordinary combat strength. But now, the golden turtle progenitor had turned into a cowardly turtle, using his hardest turtle shell to resist the methods of his prehistoric big brother. The entire world was thrown into disarray. Was the most powerful expert of the celestial court really that frightening? He hadn't even made his move, but the golden turtle primogenitor had already transformed into a turtle and adopted the most powerful defensive state to contend against him. Kill! The prehistoric big brother roared loudly. His majestic appearance was especially tall and intimidating, full of matchless heavenly might. Moreover, his entire flesh shell also pervaded the air, a type of ancient aura surpassing the ancient times. It was as if a matchless war god that had been sealed for endless years was being revived. Could it be that Big Brother hasn't recovered yet? Su Yan was incredibly shocked. He felt that there were some problems with the prehistoric Big Brother. His physical body was terrifying and ancient, but in general, the power that the prehistoric Big Brother leaked out was shocking enough to make ghosts and deities weep. He could easily suppress dozens of great provinces. But for some unknown reason, Su Yin had a nagging feeling that there was a huge disparity between the prehistoric Big Brother's current strength and his complete form. Was this a misconception? The prehistoric Big Brother was already very frightening. Could it be that because of the suppression of the undying celestial domain, the prehistoric Big Brother couldn't unleash his full strength? No matter what, the Big Brother's punch was truly invincible. It shook the entire universe, containing the strongest power, bombarding the world's Daos with it, causing them to shatter. This punch formed the scene of the Daos collapsing. It was as if the Big Brother was standing above the Daos of the heavens, transforming into an invincible emperor of the present age, bombarding the giant turtle shell. Rumble! A loud explosion shook the heavens and the earth. This sound was so loud that it was enough to shake over 100 great provinces. The sound was so loud that it was deafening. Dozens of terrifying old monsters were terrified, and their hearts were filled with fear. This fierce person was the expert who killed Daozu back then. He was truly ferocious and terrifying. The majestic fist imprint smashed onto the golden turtle shell. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the golden turtle shell trembled violently. The entire turtle shell was densely covered with countless turtle shell runes, and its defensive power was unparalleled. Who could break its defense? But the prehistoric Big Brother could. A bloody hole had already appeared on his turtle shell, and the power filled the entire turtle shell, crushing the billions of turtle shell runes. The final punch caused blood to shoot up into the heavens, splattering for an unknown number of miles, dyeing the entire star region red, forming a scene of bloody light covering the entire great province. How is this possible? The experts of the various great sects were terrified. What did they see? The golden turtle's strongest defense was directly broken by the prehistoric Big Brother. The turtle shell had a bloody hole, and the real body of the golden turtle was killed. Su Yin was agitated. He roared, his hair fluttering in the wind, and his blood was boiling. Even the old leader roared. What dog fart golden turtle? How dare he call the prehistoric Big Brother his little brother? Even if he were to enter the turtle shell state, he still wouldn't be a match for the prehistoric Big Brother. Well done. At this moment, the great blood-stained provinces were no longer calm. Too many people were shouting, and their blood was boiling. They hated the golden turtle to the extreme. Now that they saw it in such a miserable state, they all roared, wanting nothing more than to charge together with their big brother and beat the golden turtle up. Ah! The golden turtle progenitor let out a miserable shriek. The pain of his fist penetrated his heart, causing his vigorous life force to scatter. He was truly on the verge of death, about to be directly crushed into pieces. How could this be? How could there be such a powerful force in this world? Go! The group of old antiques surrounding Su Yin were scared out of their wits. They fled in panic. The golden turtle couldn't even take a single punch. If they stayed here, they would only be waiting for misfortune. Roar! The golden turtle roared, and its turtle body trembled. Its scalp and claws also drilled out, stained with blood. It was about to go crazy. At the same time, this race was full of spirituality and could vaguely sense the future. It could clearly see that it would die, that it would fall. This was misfortune about to befall it, causing the golden turtle to panic. It had lived for countless years, so how could it be willing to die now? If it died, there would be nothing left, and its race would be declared extinct. Ah! The golden turtle roared into the heavens. Although its turtle body had lost a great deal of its vitality, once the spiritual energy that this race had stored up for countless years was released, it was enough to drown out space and time. It was even more terrifying than a great province's dragon veins. Of course, the golden turtle wouldn't choose to clash with this big brother of his. Otherwise, only death would await it. He was extremely decisive. He opened his mouth and solemnly spat out an ancient tortoise shell. This turtle shell was clearly different. It was 7-colored, and there were naturally formed turtle shell characters on it. It was massive, just like a giant 7-colored turtle shell shield. What kind of supreme treasure is this? Su Yin was extremely shocked. He felt that this 7-colored tortoise shell was too heavy. It was like a corner of the heavens was placed here, and it was filled with an unparalleled pressure. It swept through the large world and caused the surroundings to tremble. This 7-colored tortoise shell had a great origin. The golden turtle progenitor obtained it at a young age, and it could be said to be his great fortune. His divine abilities and Tao laws all originated from this 7-colored tortoise shell, and it was also his strongest trump card. It believed that even the most terrifying power of the undying heavenly domain would find it difficult to destroy this 7-colored turtle shell. However, once this treasure was revived, the amount of resources it needed was too frightening. It was almost sucked dry. The 7-colored turtle shell was also enlarging, covering the entire starry sky. Suppress! The golden turtle roared, urging the 7-colored turtle shell to press down on the big brother of the prehistoric era. All matter was covered and suppressed. Great provinces fell into a state of deathly stillness. Moreover, An unimaginable force was sinking, as if dozens of provinces would be destroyed. Everyone was terrified, feeling that they would be destroyed along with the seven-colored turtle shell. In an instant, the big brother of the prehistoric era let out a long roar. His hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes emitted intense, killing intent. He raised his hand, and it was also boundless, resisting the seven-colored turtle shell. However, the seven-colored turtle shell was too heavy, and the big brother of the prehistoric era could not suppress it at all. Instead, the seven-colored turtle shell was still sinking, and it continued to attack the big brother of the prehistoric era's main body. Break again. The big brother of the prehistoric era was enraged. His palm glowed, and each of his fingers enlarged, spewing out great Tao law and order. Even the big brother of the prehistoric era's main body started to revive. His transformation was even greater, and his flesh shell was like a great killing weapon. It was like the flesh shell of a slumbering, immortal king was coming back to life. Roar! The big brother of the prehistoric era let out a roar, and his body burned brightly. His temporary revival forcefully broke free from the suppression of the great environment. He seemed to have turned into a blurry, immortal king, standing at the peak of the great world and punching the seven-colored turtle shell. Rumble! The entire turtle shell was trembling and rumbling. But it had to be said that the seven-colored turtle shell was so powerful that even the big brother of the prehistoric era could not destroy it. But just the shaking and shaking of the turtle shell was enough to make the progenitor of the golden turtle fall into despair. The recoil was too frightening, and it could not bear it. Its body was cracking, and its source of life was greatly reduced. The turtle shell was also breaking apart, and it was about to be killed. Bastard! The progenitor of the golden turtle let out a mournful roar, and its eyes were full of hatred. It was filled with endless unwillingness and anger, and it used all of its source of power to erupt with the heaven-splitting art. The entire space-time collapsed, and the turtle body traversed the space-time outside the realm. Suyan's eyes widened. The progenitor of the golden turtle escaped. It was clear how frightening the seven-colored turtle shell was, but it chose to give up on the supreme treasure. As for the seven-colored turtle shell, the big brother of the prehistoric era was holding it in his hand. His palm glowed, and endless rules of order flowed out, cutting off all of the golden turtle's imprints on the turtle shell. From this moment on, the seven-colored turtle shell fell silent, lying horizontally in the big brother's palm. Big brother, that old bastard is too hateful. We can't let it live. Suyin shouted. With the progenitor of the golden turtle's insidiousness, once it recovered, it would definitely launch a frenzied retaliation against the celestial court. The seven-colored tortoise shell that lay dormant in the prehistoric big brother's palm was blazing brilliantly. This tortoise shell was extraordinary. The naturally formed tortoise shell runes were shining brightly. It was as if it had transformed into a mirror, tracing the traces of the golden turtle progenitor. Even a blood-stained figure of the golden turtle appeared on the seven-colored turtle shell. It was now frantically fleeing in the outer realm. The old chief was speechless. What kind of supreme treasure was this? It could track the enemy? Wasn't it too astonishing? The big brother handed the seven-colored turtle shell to Suyin. The progenitor of the golden turtle was already heavily injured, and its combat strength was less than 10% or 20% of its peak. Killing it would not be difficult, and Suyin disdained to waste time chasing after a turtle. Big brother, don't worry. I will definitely capture it alive. Suyin slapped his thigh in excitement. He received the seven-colored turtle shell. As long as this object continued to pursue the progenitor of the golden turtle, killing this half-dead turtle would not be difficult at all. The old chief was also excited. It was clear that the big brother could have killed the progenitor of the golden turtle, but he did not. Chasing after the heavily injured Daozu was also a form of experience for Suyin. Chapter 1752. For millions of years, such a shocking event had never happened before. Countless living beings in the immortal celestial domain, as well as the experts of various orthodoxies, were all silent. Daozu had been revered and worshipped by trillions of living beings. He was a supreme expert, and even Daozu's son was known as an invincible existence. However, too many things had happened in recent years. In the Battle of Emperor Road, Daozu's son was overshadowed, and a young supreme from the ruined celestial court swept through the entire Emperor Road and dominated the world. Now, Su Yin was standing at the supreme level, and he had broken into the Xian people's ancestral land and dug out the Xian people's treasures. Now, a dozen old monsters working together could not do anything to him in a short time. Of course, the most shocking thing was still the prehistoric Big Brother. He was too terrifying and unimaginable. After all, was the golden turtle not powerful enough? It was known as one of the most powerful creatures in the world. Now, it was running away in panic and could not even care about the seven-colored turtle shell. Similarly, without the seven-colored turtle shell, the golden turtle would have been destroyed by the prehistoric Big Brother. This was an earth-shattering event. This battle was even more shocking than the one in Tianyang State decades ago. The battle at the Xian people's ancestral land was even more turbulent. A group of top experts worked together to besiege a woman who was almost like a demon, but they could not take her down. One had to admit that this was very frightening. Originally, the Xian people formed an alliance and attacked the Xianwang universe. But now, they couldn't even protect their own home. The whole world was in an uproar. All living beings were engaged in heated discussions. Many people were also staring at the figure entrenched in the blood-stained Great Prefecture. If he joined the battle, would the immortal race and other clans be completely destroyed? The prehistoric Big Brother's aura was too shocking. His unparalleled majesty, his messy black hair, and the murderous intent in his eyes were quite intense. It was even sharper and more domineering than the murderous intent from hell. The whole world trembled under his feet. Anyone could sense how oppressive the aura surging from the prehistoric Big Brother's ancient body was. It was filled with a supreme sense of oppression that swept through over 100 continents and caused the ancestral halls of the various great sects to rumble endlessly. A new era was coming. Some people thought that the revived celestial court would rule the world again in the future. Su Yin believed that it had something to do with the environment. Both the prehistoric Big Brother and the Dao Shi were suppressed by the environment. Once the environment was unsealed, this world would become very cruel. Su Yin, you're finally back. At this moment, laughter came from a distant world. He was Yuan followed the marks left behind by the prehistoric Big Brother and quickly approached undying heavenly domain. Originally, they were preparing for war in the Xianwang universe, waiting for the arrival of the Xian people. But they didn't expect Su Yin to cause a ruckus in the undying heavenly domain and draw away a group of experts. I'm back in time. Su Yin laughed. This battle was too satisfying. After being targeted by the Xian people for so many years, he could finally hold his head high and settle the score. Su Yan's harvest from the battle with the Xian people was too shocking. He even took away the Daozu tree. Although there was still the mark of the Xian people's ancestors, this problem would be solved soon. A mature Daozu tree was an ultimate treasure medicine. It was even related to the realm of the Daozu. The value of this tree was too ridiculous. It could bring glory and prosperity to a group of people. Su Yin, I heard that you become a supreme. You killed the Xian people supreme. Well done. East Demon also came. He was already standing in the Daoyuo golden immortal realm. His aura was biting cold and tyrannical. He was tall and majestic. His body was filled with boundless power. Vaguely, an immeasurable great Dao diagram appeared and ruled the world. Long time no see, East Demon. You're also about to enter the supreme realm. Su Yin laughed. He was very emotional. There were many outstanding people in the Xianwang universe now. In another 100 years, a batch of Daozu trees would come out. Roar, a dragon came across. It was 10,000 feet long and covered in green scales. The true dragon's chi was vigorous. It was obvious that it was an extraordinary overlord. Su Yin was surprised by Iron Rooster, who was traveling with him. Iron Rooster's transformation was getting bigger and bigger. He was really like a silver phoenix. His words made Su Yin shocked and happy at the same time. Iron Rooster had obtained the scriptures of the fairyland. It was known that a group of true phoenixes had been raised in that treasured land. Iron Rooster had obtained the strongest ancient heavenly art of the true phoenixes and a series of great divine powers. Kid, you don't want to share the good stuff. How's the harvest from attacking the Xian people? Bao Kai ran over with a gloomy face and complained. Why didn't you tell us? Have you emptied the Xian people's treasury? Did you bring out the Earth Immortal tree? Give me a fruit to taste. We just met, and you're already thinking about it. Zixia patted Bao Cai's big head. She carried the 5-day song, swords on her back. Her body was hazy with a layer of chaotic sword chi. Old leader. At this moment, Yuan was shocked. Bao Kai and the others were also shocked. The old leader had stepped into the realm of Daozu. Don't you brats recognize me? That's right, I'm now a Daozu. The old leader laughed heartily. Seeing their shocked faces, he was particularly proud. It would be embarrassing for a bunch of old bones like him to be left behind by this group of juniors. At this moment, the experts who were watching the battle from afar near the blood-stained great state were all silent. They saw a group of young people who were exceptionally strong and extraordinary. They had extraordinary potential and background. This group of young people was also quite famous. There is no doubt that this was a great opportunity brought to them by the Emperor Road. A group of young people in the realm of Daluo, Golden Immortals. Some people seemed to see the prosperity of the Celestial Court in the future. There was even a woman with a gray aura. She looked a little scary, but no one could recognize who she was. Su Yin did not recognize her either. However, upon closer inspection, wasn't that Bamboo Moon? Bamboo Moon's aura was unpredictable. She was still so beautiful, graceful, and elegant, like a goddess of the galaxy. She was as stunning as ever. The ancestor has fallen. Back then, it was only its imprinted conjured body. However, its roots are still there. There's a great chance of it coming back from the dead. Bamboo Moon did not hide anything. The Sky Bamboo ancestor's dormant seed was floating in her consciousness. Big Brother Prehistoric asked her to recite the Sky Bamboo scripture often. One day, she could awaken the Sky Bamboo ancestor's dormant primordial spirit. This was a great tribulation. Whether it could be completely awakened was still a question. However, Big Brother Prehistoric said that once the Sky Bamboo ancestor survived this tribulation, the future would be amazing. It would grow into a very shocking realm. This was the Sky Bamboo ancestor's tribulation, but it was also her opportunity. Bamboo Moon opened up her consciousness. Su Yan's spiritual power probed inside. He saw a special immortal source. It was also like an immortal chrysalis. It was suffused with a terrifying influence and blocked Su Yan's probing. This was the current Sky Bamboo ancestor. It was in a dormant state. It would not be easy to break the immortal chrysalis and come back from the dead. Boom! At this moment, Big Brother Prehistoric opened his arms and tore open a space-time rift. He stepped into it. The people in the outside world were shocked. The pillar of the Celestial Court had made his move. He would certainly kill his way into the Xian people and settle the matter of the past. Inexplicably, they were panicking. Once this battle ended, the universe would undergo a great change. Would the era of the Celestial Court's reign over the world come early? Let's go follow him. Bao Kai was somewhat impatient. He was clamoring to rob the Xian people of their treasures. Now, the Bound of Universe was consolidating all forces and preparing to refine a furnace of level 9 life essence evolution fluid. They were still lacking a lot of materials. We don't need to go. We have more important things to do now. Su Yin summoned the 7-colored turtle shell. The golden turtle ancestor was still fleeing through the void. He was really worried that Big Brother Prehistoric would chase after him. In short, he had to leave the undying heavenly domain as soon as possible to avoid disaster. Golden turtle ancestor, this old turtle, the little azure dragon growled. It had long since angered them by calling Big Brother Prehistoric little brother. Unfortunately, they were not strong enough. Otherwise, they would have killed their way into the undying heavenly domain. Now that golden turtle ancestor was heavily injured, it was an excellent opportunity to kill him. What kind of treasure is this? It can actually track golden turtle ancestor's tracks? Baukai glared and said angrily, "This old thing is injured. The heavens are really helping me. Let's join hands and kill him. We'll destroy this old turtle and dig out his nest." Compared to robbing the Xian people, Su Yin and the others were more eager to kill golden turtle ancestor. The disrespect to Big Brother prehistoric heavenly domain had become a thorn in their hearts. If golden turtle ancestor ran too far away, the seven-colored turtle shell might not be able to track him down. In that case, it would be even harder to kill him. "Don't worry, this old thing will not be able to escape," Su Yin said coldly. "He has been severely injured by Big Brother prehistoric heavenly domain. Let's see how far he can run. A cowardly turtle. Now that he is scared half to death, he will definitely find a way to recover. Let's chase after him and not give him any chance to recover." The old leader's eyes flashed coldly. He could already see the shadow of the seven-colored turtle shell. It was a little blurry. Clearly, golden turtle ancestor was running for his life. Su Yan's group disappeared as they traversed the void. After all, golden turtle ancestor was heavily injured. No matter how fast he would not be able to run far. The old leader led them with all his might. The group of young people from the Celestial Court were all fired up. They shouted loudly, wanting to kill golden turtle ancestor. Su Yin and the others were on an expedition to the outer realm. Big Brother prehistoric heavenly domain was on his way to the Xian people. The storm in this world became even more violent. All the sects were shaken. Currently, a large number of experts were gathered in the faraway parts of the shattered immortal continent to watch the great showdown on the ancestral land of the Xian people. Boom! No one expected the storm to become even more violent. Suddenly, the entire undying heavenly domain rumbled. It was as if another world had descended upon the undying heavenly domain and covered the world. Heavenly Sun continent exploded like a dam bursting. The boundless seal broke, and dozens of continents around it sank at the same time. In a short period of time, a sea of blood filled the sky. Gray fog billowed, and billions of lives were evaporated. Such a tragic event had never happened before. The sinking of dozens of continents caused chaos and panic. Something even seemed to have fallen and crushed dozens of continents. It was a terrifying scene that shook the entire world. Chapter 1753. The undying heavenly domain shook violently, and a storm raged. What is that? Am I seeing things? How is this possible? This was the spreading of chaos and panic, affecting the heaven and earth, affecting all the orthodoxies and races. At the same time, the strongest experts in the various continents were awakened. They looked in the direction of the source, and all of them fell silent. Many experts were drenched in cold sweat, and their faces were pale. They were trembling, and they let out low growls. All of a sudden, the entire undying heavenly domain fell silent, and it was so quiet that it was suffocating. A single continent was extremely vast, but when the continents were added together, it was naturally unimaginable. But now, the heavenly sun continent had exploded, and the surrounding continents were destroyed. Countless lives were lost, and the heaven and earth were dyed red. The color of blood seemed to have covered the entire undying heavenly domain. It was obvious that something heaven-defying had happened here, and it was an unprecedented change. It was as if something had fallen from the sky and destroyed dozens of continents. Boundless blood mist rose, and it swept across the entire undying heavenly domain. During this time, there were screams that could be heard from time to time, shaking the destroyed world. These living beings were extremely powerful. It was not just one, but more than a dozen screams. Following that, there were no signs of life, and no traces of them could be found. Were they evaporated? Countless people were trembling, and their hearts were filled with fear. Their scalps were about to explode. What was the place that connected to the heavenly sun continent? That was the core continent of the undying heavenly domain, and it was controlled by the immortal orthodoxies. A heaven-defying calamity had descended, and without a doubt, the strongest experts of these orthodoxies were killed. There were definitely Daozu creatures among them, but what was this? The Dao ancestor life form didn't even make any waves before it vanished into thin air, unable to make any waves at all. This terrifying event was like the passing of a world-ending torrent. Countless people trembled, and their hair stood on end. Even major prefectures of the underworld were affected, and a small part of them collapsed. Boom! Following that, a violent storm surged out, and the cold wind howled, and the gray fog billowed, drowning the blood and disaster. It was like a devouring force, and dozens of continents turned dark, as if they had formed a black hole. It was as if the gates to hell had been opened wide, and the world was walking towards destruction. Black tornadoes swept out, one after another. Woo-woo sounds rang out, and the pressure made heaven and earth tremble. The 3,000 provinces were all shaking. A terrifying great change was born, and it continued to worsen. The land of calamity was born, and the hell gate was expanding. It was as if the hell gate was going to devour the entire, undying heavenly domain. What happened? Daozu was about to despair as he let out a low roar. They were scared stiff. Their bodies were trembling, and they were about to lose their footing. The ancestral core of the myriad sects was rumbling. Countless experts were howling in grief. Even the strongest ruler of the clans couldn't help but tremble. So how could they not panic? This was an apocalyptic calamity sweeping out, about to destroy the entire world. The order of the great Tao of heaven and earth was already in chaos, and a great collapse had occurred. Without a doubt, the world could not stop it, and it was going to be destroyed. Is this fate? The expressions of the strongest experts of these peak powers from the sovereign sect were gloomy because the battle at Heavenly Sun Prefecture a few tens of years ago had ended because of the looming appearance of calamity. If the peak battle of the past had continued, it would have affected the environment of the world and caused a disaster to come earlier. That was why they stopped the war and sealed Heavenly Sun Prefecture. They had once speculated that this period of time would be relatively far away, but they had never expected that in just a few tens of years, the calamity would come again. It destroyed dozens of provinces, killed countless living beings, and caused a bloody calamity. Once this calamity erupted, who could resist it? Who could stop it? Would the undying heavenly domain enter the Dark Age? Would it be reduced to a land of death and destruction like the Xianhuang universe? It was related to all the clans and forces. Everyone was extremely nervous and depressed. They stared at the source of the darkness and couldn't say a word. They could only breathe heavily. They were nervous and suffocated. Black calamity. At the same time, the news was leaked, and it shook the entire world again. All living beings in the world were terrified. 1,000,000 years ago, the Xianhuang universe was invaded by the Black Calamity. The space and time of the universe fell, and all living beings fell into a state of eternal damnation. This was originally a taboo matter, but it spread like wildfire. It was terrifying and related to the source of the calamity in the Xianhuang universe. Everyone was trembling. Weren't the Xian people the main force? It turned out that the Black Calamity was the root cause of the Xianhuang universe's heavy losses. 1,000,000 years ago, the Xianhuang universe suffered the same calamity, and now the undying heavenly domain had to bear it too. How could this be? Why do we have to bear all this? Why? Many people cried bitterly. Would they die? What was the Black Calamity? Would they all die? Would the entire universe turn into ashes? Who is the enemy? Some people roared at the sky, wanting to know who started the Black Calamity and why it attacked them. Could there be a universe dimension more terrifying than the undying heavenly domain? Could it be that this universe wasn't the background they imagined? Were they looking at the sky from the bottom of a well? It was too cruel to even think about it. In short, the entire world was in chaos, and panic was spreading out. The big shots didn't hide it anymore. They felt that they should tell the public what they were facing. Since things had come to this point, what awaited them might be the destruction of the universe. Oh, as if the sky was crying, the undying heavenly domain was in chaos. The heavens were about to collapse, and everything was about to die. Trillions of living beings were wailing. It was a terrible calamity. With the example of the Xianwang universe, who dared to ignore it? Everyone was scared stiff. They're all going to die. Ha ha, they're all going to die. Many people were screaming madly. Their eyes were bloodshot. The pitiful ones were dying without knowing who the enemy was. This was the sorrow of all living beings. Boom! In the direction of the source, a black tornado swept out, crushing the Tao of heaven and earth and destroying the pressure of the environment. Trillions of torrents surged towards the world in the distance. A great province that bordered the land of darkness, a territory that stretched for millions and millions of li, suddenly broke apart, everything destroyed. Countless living beings were wailing, trying to escape from the calamity. But no matter how fast they were, they couldn't be faster than the black calamity. Too many people died, and it was hard to count. Even the most powerful experts turned into skeletons on the way out. It was truly despairing. The black calamity was spreading, and it was about to engulf the entire undying heavenly domain. At the same time, some powerful sects were trying to shift their ancestral grounds away from the undying heavenly domain and into the outer space to avoid the calamity. Who can save us? Black fog billowed and chilly winds howled. The terrifying aura was about to reach the next region, and the living beings of the universe were wailing. But this calamity was too terrifying, and no one could stand against it. Boom! In an instant, the undying heavenly domain rumbled. Obviously, something shocking was happening, and there was a terrifying energy surging. What was that? Everyone saw a ray of light in the midst of despair. It's the Emperor Road. Someone screamed, and his eyes were red with tears. Just as the undying heavenly domain was about to collapse, the Emperor Road appeared. A blurry and unreal road suddenly appeared, blocking the peak of the sky. The Emperor Road was burning, and millions of strands of laws were burning. This was the power of the burial ground era, and also the power of the ancient celestial emperors of the celestial court was awakening. It was like a sea of cosmic order, and it blocked the edge of the dark crevice. In an instant, the darkness disappeared, and the world returned to its original peaceful state. Everyone in the world fell silent. The calamity was gone, and the despairing people stood up, looking at the Emperor Road that turned into a sea of cosmic order and fell into a daze. But things weren't as good as they thought. The darkness that was silent in the void went berserk again, and the Hell Gate was completely opened. Endless black waves gushed out, shaking the entire world. Woo-woo! The sea of cosmic order trembled. The aura that rushed out of the darkness was too frightening, and there were blurry roars exploding. It was like millions of demons had been released, and the outline of a huge creature vaguely appeared in the darkness. It was attacking the sea of cosmic order formed by the Emperor Road, and there were even sounds of scolding. It was as if it was scolding the heavens and this world. The Emperor of Darkness had descended, and everything had to be punished. No one could survive, and no one could stop it. Boom! The sea of cosmic order rumbled, and millions of laws, accompanied by the Emperor's aura that came from ancient times, shook the entire world. In the Xian people's ancestral land, Dao Shi looked at the Emperor Road and the blurry figure that was beginning to appear on it. The moment the figure appeared, the entire world fell silent. Even the darkness pool was a little blurry, and it was about to dissipate and return to silence. What kind of terrifying influence was this? Dao Shi's eyes were a little wet. Her clothes fluttered as she looked at the figure that was gradually becoming clearer. Without a doubt, the emergence of this figure had angered the darkness pool. It had blocked them for so long, and now it wanted to continue? Rumble. The endless darkness rumbled violently, and an even more frightening aura swept over, accompanied by bursts of angry voices. It wanted to tear apart the Emperor Road, destroy the sea of cosmic order, and descend upon the mortal world once again. However, these bursts of angry voices, one after another, seemed to have awakened something. The sea of laws rumbled, and the blurry figure within became clearer once more. Faintly, a terrifying light flickered. This was a light that swept over from a distant and unreachable place, exploding the primal chaos, tearing apart the long river of time, wanting to destroy all calamities. Stop! In the darkness, there was a voice. It was very ancient, unclear, and blurry, as if it had exploded a long time ago. Why? In the darkness, there was also a terrifying creature that was furious. It could not wait to take away the thing that had fallen into the mortal world. Follow his will, and don't anger him. A creature in the darkness said solemnly. Even if he is trapped in the ultimate burial Emperor's doom soil and can never return, we can't anger anything related to his will. Otherwise, it will lead to uncontrollable changes. Even if he really dies, even if he fell a long time ago, we can't anger him. Perhaps this will bring him back from a long time ago. The creature in the darkness fell silent. What kind of existence was this? Chapter 1754. During the banquet, the chaos in the undying heavenly domain gradually subsided. The darkness was dispersing and disappearing. The calamity returned to nothingness, as if it had never happened before. The scene looked a little ridiculous. What was going on? The darkness disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a desolate and dark land. However, there was no trace of the black calamity's aura, not even a trace of it. Follow his will. Even if it was left behind a long time ago, it could not be disobeyed. Sure enough, along with the dispersing of the darkness and vanishing without a trace, the figure that was about to reveal itself was slowly dispersing, and it seemed as if it had returned to the annals of history and vanished without a trace. The source of the calamity has been sealed. The Emperor's Road has sealed the darkness. It's the celestial court. The commotion in the undying heavenly domain was getting bigger and bigger. Countless despairing living beings widened their eyes in disbelief. It was the Emperor's Road that had appeared, suppressed the black calamity, and stopped the calamity from spreading. The celestial court, someone roared in a low voice. Why was it the celestial court and not some other force? But it did not make sense. The celestial court had sealed the black calamity, but why was the undying heavenly domain heavily damaged by the black calamity 1,000,000 years ago? Why? So this is the Emperor's Road, the big shot side. What a joke. 1,000,000 years ago, the strongest group of forces in the undying heavenly domain had destroyed the celestial court and almost destroyed the Xianhuang universe after the black calamity had invaded. But now, it was the Emperor's Road, created by the ancient celestial court, that had appeared and suppressed the black calamity. Countless people were agitated, and their emotions were about to explode. They even thought that if it was not for the Emperor's Road, the undying heavenly domain might have already withered away and ceased to exist. At this moment, countless eyes fell on the desolate, immortal continent. One should know that there was a master of the Emperor's Road here. Some people saw a huge bronze hand stretching out, covering the desolate, immortal continent. The Lord of Hell and the others looked gloomy. Big Brother Prehistoric was here. They thought that another great battle was about to break out, but they did not expect Big Brother Prehistoric's hand to turn into a passage and bring the Dao Shui out. Ancestor, Dao Shui was emotional. Tears flashed in her eyes. No matter how strong she was or how great her background was, she was still a child in front of the prehistoric Big Brother. She even had to kowtow to him. This was her beloved ancestor. Even the celestial emperor of the ancient celestial court had to greet him as a disciple. Tonger, the prehistoric elder brother laughed heartily and raised his hand to stop the Tao Shui. His gray hair draped over his shoulders. He still remembered what he looked like when he was young. He used to be a little errand boy beside the Emperor of Heaven. Now, he was no longer a weakling. Ancestor, your body? Dao Shui's expression changed slightly. He realized that there was something wrong with the prehistoric Big Brother's body. This did not seem to be his original body. Back when she was in Emperor Road, she knew that the Celestial Court had suffered a series of tragedies, but he could not leave Emperor Road at all. However, based on what she knew, who could do anything to Big Brother Prehistoric? Even with the suppression of the environment here, these powerhouses alone could not do anything. Even if the Celestial Court sent out hundreds of millions of troops, with Big Brother Prehistoric overseeing the Celestial Court, who could do anything to them? However, it seemed that the situation was not what she had imagined. It turned out that something had happened to Big Brother Prehistoric. Only now did Dao Shui see some clues. It's okay. I can hold on for a while. Don't worry. Big Brother Prehistoric was tall and big. He stood between heaven and earth like a tall demon god. He said, "The world is going to be chaotic. The future is really chaotic. Leave the future to the future." Dao Shui's eyes flashed coldly. Her gaze fell on the Lord of the Underworld and the others. She said, "Ancestor, wait for me here. I'll kill them and settle the score." The ancestors of the Xian people were furious. Although Dao Shui was stronger, they could not do anything about it. However, in the current environment, how could they be killed as they wished? After all, they had already reached the limits of the universe. It was extremely difficult to kill them. Moreover, they were not afraid of the current heavenly court. Fellow Taoists, if you continue fighting, aren't you worried that the Black Calamity will come again? The Battle of Tianyang State in the past was caused by your bloodshed, which led to the current calamity. At this moment, the powerhouses of the various sects rushed over. They would not allow the two factions strongest to fight here. After all, they had reached the limit of the universe's environment. Once they fought, the impact on the environment would be too great. It was very likely that the Black Calamity would come again. They were the strongest experts of the Pinnacle sections. Now that the immortal heavenly domain was about to face a calamity, it was time for them to sit down and talk about the future of the universe. Translator's thoughts lamb_lamb_lamb_. Stop the war, just because you said so? What does the undying heavenly domain have to do with me? Dao Shui stood between the heavens and the earth. She looked at the group of powerhouses and said calmly, "What does it have to do with the Celestial Court?" The group of Daozu powerhouses' faces changed. What did she mean? However, they did not dare to do anything. This woman should be the ruler of the Emperor Road. Her identity and background were too terrifying. Who would dare to act rashly in front of her? However, they were puzzled. If the Emperor Road was qualified to fight against the Black Calamity, why couldn't the Xianhuang universe do it back then? The Emperor Road blocked the calamity and gave everyone hope. This is a great favor. This is a great favor for everyone in the world. We will never forget it. One of the Daozu powerhouses said, "The scene just now was too dangerous." If the Emperor Road did not block the darkness, what would happen now? Everyone knew what would happen next. Even the Xianhuang universe could not resist the Black Calamity. How could the undying heavenly domain resist it? Once the Emperor Road was blocked, the undying heavenly domain would be destroyed and cease to exist. These words made Dao Shui's expression soften. She said calmly, "This is an official case. Since things have come to this point, please speak your mind. We are all ears." The group of Daozu powerhouses were very humble. The calamity was too great. The undying heavenly domain alone could not stop it. 1,000,000 years ago, the Black Calamity came in full force at the Emperor Road's final destination. Dao Shui's voice was very loud. It spread across the vast land. The prehistoric Big Brother did not say anything, but it did not mean that she would not say anything. According to what we know, some tribes participated in the Black Calamity's attack. What? The powerhouses' faces changed. The calamity came 1,000,000 years ago and started to spread at the Emperor Road's final destination. This was also the reason for the final battle 1,000,000 years ago. It turned out that the Black Calamity caused a series of tragedies. Don't you slander us. The mysterious sky sect's ancestors' face darkened. He said coldly, "What proof do you have that we did it? Why are you in such a hurry? Did the fairy say it was you? If you stand out now, aren't you guilty?" The sword sect's ancestor was furious. He came with the sky Hegemon sword. The Black Calamity was a great calamity. It was a calamity that destroyed the roots of the universe. It was a great evil. The problem was clear. Back then, only the three of them survived from the Emperor Road's final destination. Logically speaking, the Emperor Road could still seal the Black Calamity. However, if there were no forces involved in the battle a million years ago, how could the Black Calamity invade? Thinking of this, the group of powerhouses' faces turned ugly. Were the Cien people evil? To be honest, they did not dare to believe it. One should know that these tribes were the strongest forces in the undying heavenly domain. If they were evil, what hope did the undying heavenly domain have to fight against the future calamity? If these tribes were directly related to the Black Calamity, did the undying heavenly domain have any hope? The mysterious Sky Sex ancestor's expression was uncertain. He could feel the murderous intent of the Daozu powerhouses all over the world. They were about to anger everyone, but as long as they did not admit it, these people could not do anything to them. The Celestial Court sent out billions of troops to fight against the Black Calamity and guard the Emperor Road's final destination. Sadly, we were ambushed by you bastards. How shameless. Dao Shi spoke. Her voice was so loud that it shook the universe. It exploded between the mountains and the earth. The world seemed to be trembling because of her words. In an instant, countless beings were alarmed. They felt a chill down their spines. Was this real? The whole world trembled. The great figures could not help but seethe with anger. This was the bloody incident of the past. This was what the Celestial Court had encountered. It was not that the Celestial Court could not stop the Black Calamity. It was the ancient Celestial Court's billions of troops that went to the Emperor Road's final destination. How could this be? Someone roared out. This was too vicious. Even his chest was starting to water. Dao Shi was different. Her words carried too much weight. Everyone knew that she was the ruler of the Emperor Road. Everyone knew that she had stopped the Black Calamity from spreading. Her words were like thunder from the nine heavens, suppressing everyone and making them tremble. A million years ago, the battle that destroyed the legend of the Celestial Court had made the Cien people glorious and glorious. However, there was actually such a bloody and dirty story behind it. Many people could not accept it. After all, the Cien people had always regarded the incident as glorious and glorious. However, the story behind it made people's hair stand on end. The Celestial Court sent out billions of troops to help the undying heavenly domain fight against the Black Calamity. In return, they were stabbed in the back by their allies. Moreover, they wanted to eliminate the source of the problem. You're slandering us. The Lord of the Underworld roared. His voice echoed across the land. He said angrily, You're slandering us. What evidence do you have? We survived because of special reasons. It's not what you're saying. If you don't have evidence, don't try to frame us. They have the initiative now. It's not up to them to say whatever they want. The Cien people's ancestors could not admit it. No one could admit it. No one could afford to be scolded like this. The world was in chaos. A storm was brewing. The universe was trembling. The four seas were rumbling, and the stars in the sky were shaking. One could imagine what kind of waves this incident had caused. The Sword Sex ancestor was the first to speak. Fairy, the Emperor Road has sealed the source of the darkness. This is a great achievement. Just say the word, and we will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Even if there was no such bloody and dirty story, the Emperor Road's achievement alone was enough for them to act. The situation here was a little scary. Even the Sword Sex ancestor had spoken. Although the Sovereign Sex ancestors did not say anything, they stared coldly at the Cien people's ancestors and the others. This had implicated the universe's greatest disaster. Who would dare to ignore it? Ancestor, please say something. Dao Shi looked at the prehistoric big brother. She really wanted to make a move and kill them right now. Everything would be settled once and for all. Let the juniors deal with the matters of the younger generation. The prehistoric big brother left this sentence. After that, he left with Dao Shi. The most terrifying era was coming. This was also the only chance for Su Yin and the others to fight. The Big Brother wanted them to become stronger so that they could face even crueler tests and forge a path. Perhaps they would be able to go further in the future. The entire world fell into an infinite silence. The Lord of the Underworld and the others were really furious. What did he mean by that? Did he want Su Yin and the others to rise up and kill the strongest among the ancestors? Was that wishful thinking? It was not difficult for the prehistoric Big Brother to kill them. However, he hoped that the young people of the Celestial Court could stand up and kill them. You've gone too far. Do you really think you're the ruler of the world? Do you think you can kill us just because you want to? A Daozu roared. His eyes were red as he roared furiously. His hair fluttered in the wind. He was really furious. What he faced was actually a large bronze hand. It was too fast, crushing down in an instant. It was massive to the extreme, tearing apart the limits of heaven and earth. His entire body exploded into bloody light, exploding between heaven and earth. Chapter 1755. The storm continued in the undying heavenly region, and the entire universe could not calm down. The immortal state was in ruins, and the ancestral land had collapsed. Only a small part of it was left. However, in this broken ancestral land, terrifying creatures roared one after another. They were really angry. Their hair danced in the wind, and their murderous aura surged. Ah, the mysterious sky sex ancestral ancestor, and the others were furious. This was just too sullen. The prehistoric Big Brother's words of letting the younger generation deal with the matters of the younger generation made them angry out of shame. What did he mean by that? Could it be that he wanted Su Yin and the others to rise up and kill them all? They were the strongest Daozu in the world. Who could match them? Was Su Yin, who had only recently matured, qualified to contend with them? Without a doubt, the prehistoric Big Brother disdained to make a move. Calling him a junior had already shocked the world. However, no one dared to underestimate Su Yan's strength. He was the one who led the charge into the celestial race's ancestral land and caused a series of disasters. In short, the celestial race's camp had suffered a crushing defeat in this battle. Moreover, the glory of 1,000,000 years ago was now stinking. In fact, there was a bigger reason why the prehistoric Big Brother did not make a move. Once the peak battle continued, it would really affect the unsealing of the world's environment. In that case, this world would really face the cruelest problem. All of a sudden, a palm slapped down from the sky and destroyed a Tao ancestor. The mysterious sky sex ancestor and the others were completely silent. What kind of power was that? It reversed the suppression of the world's environment. They were really suffocating. It was not difficult to kill them, but it would be left to the younger generation to do it. Sai, the sword sex ancestor, and the others chased after the prehistoric Big Brother's footsteps, but they could not catch up in the end. The expressions of the strongest people from the various sects were uncertain. The Black Calamity would come sooner or later, and they could vaguely predict the future. Chaos, that was a disaster, and all kinds of horrible things were about to happen. Damn, I was scared to death just now. Tai Baokai was sweating profusely. He really felt that the undying heavenly region was done for. They could sense the turmoil in the undying heavenly region, even from the outer realm. Although this had nothing to do with the Xianhuang universe. Once the gate of the undying heavenly region was broken, would the void still exist? It would directly threaten the black-yellow universe. Master said. Fairy Xia's eyes lit up as she said, "The person who created the Emperor's Road was an extremely powerful, invincible being. It's a miracle that he rose to power in the origin of life in a heavenly macro world that almost didn't exist." What do you mean? East Demon's expression changed. Why did he say that it didn't exist? One had to know that the mysterious skeleton behind Zixia Fairy had an amazing background. If the catastrophe of the prehistoric burial ground era spreads, do you think the black-yellow universe has any hope of rising again? Baokai shuddered. The era of the burial ground had been over for hundreds of millions of years, but the prosperity of the mysterious yellow universe had not lasted for hundreds of millions of years. The burial grounds were a part of the heavenly great world. They were also the most terrifying force in the heavenly great world. Along with all the cultivation dimensions in the heavenly great world, the heavenly great world had been destroyed at the end of the burial grounds era. But the black-yellow universe didn't. This meant that the mysterious yellow universe was very special. Due to special reasons, it was not invaded by the black calamity. Moreover, during the prosperous days of the celestial court, the passage between the universe and the heavens was opened. Baokai wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. If it were not for special reasons, he would not be where he was now. Zixia Fairy speculated that the most powerful celestial emperor of the celestial court had left a seal in the undying celestial domain because he had foreseen that the catastrophe would come again. Therefore, he had sealed off the emperor's road in the undying celestial domain. The celestial emperor must have left to deal with the black calamity. He wanted to completely quell the rebellion, but he might have encountered some special reasons that prevented him from returning for a long time. Zixia Fairy said in a low voice, "I really don't know what happened. The Emperor's road will not be sealed for long. If the black calamity comes again, how are we going to fight it? Do we have a way out?" Suyan's heart was heavy. What were the sources of darkness and some forces in the immortal world looking for? He had a hunch that this day would not be too far away. However, no matter what, he had to be strong enough before the catastrophe came. If he did not even have the qualifications to fight it, that would be a tragedy. "Zixia, is your master awake?" Suyan asked. He wanted to talk to the mysterious skeleton and learn more about the history of the Tibetan era. "Almost. Although he is still a little confused, he is not far from being completely awake." Zixia Fairy sighed. "But how much strength does he have left? I really don't know what we will face in the future. Why are you talking about this?" Tai Baokai shook his head and said, "This topic is too heavy. We're not Daozu now. This is not something we are qualified to worry about. Let's kill the golden turtle ancestor first. This old thing is a great tonic. With its flesh and blood essence, we will be able to break through to the supreme stage in a short time." The foundation needed to complete the immortal path was huge. Although they had accumulated enough, they were still lacking a lot. If they could successfully take down the golden turtle ancestor, they would be able to reduce a lot of cultivation time. Right now, the best way to break through was to use Daozu as soon as possible. Moreover, the preparation for the level 9 life essence evolution liquid had already begun. Perhaps they would be able to gather it in 10 or 20 years. Suyan really did have a few materials on him. They did not waste any more time. They crossed the void space and continued to pursue the golden turtle ancestor. The void space was vast and boundless. It used to be a prosperous celestial world, but now it was dead silent. There was no life, no universe laws, and every inch of space and time had a terrible power of destruction. Once a weak creature fell into the void space, it would definitely die. Suyin and the others had a strong life aura. Although they were also affected by the void space, they were still too strong. They were like war gods walking in the darkness. In the vast and boundless void space, they were particularly dazzling. The old leader was already Daozu. His strength was terrible. He could tear the void space apart by raising his hand and cross one void space after another. This old turtle is really fast. He's still crossing the void space. Baokai was speechless. The 7-colored tortoise shell kept showing the golden turtle ancestor's blood-stained tortoise shell. However, ever since the golden turtle ancestor escaped from the undying heaven domain, it was like a madman crossing the void space. It knew how terrifying the prehistoric Big Brother was. If this Zhong Xiongren was determined to kill it, he would definitely cross the void space to pursue it. Therefore, no matter what happened, even if it was severely injured, the golden turtle ancestor did not stop for a short time. It wanted to hide in the void space to avoid the disaster. A total of 9 days and 9 nights passed. Su Yin and the others did not stop. The old leader used a large amount of blood essence to speed up their journey. They felt that they were getting closer and closer to the destination of the 7-colored tortoise shell. It stopped. At this moment, Su Yan's eyes widened. The source of the 7-colored tortoise shell had stopped. "What's that?" In the void space, not too far away from Su Yin and the others, there was a great universe floating in the void space. It was also the origin of life. But at this moment, the entire great universe was trembling violently. Oh my God! All the living beings in the universe screamed. The land beyond the heavens turned dark. Then, the smell of blood rolled down and covered the entire universe, causing the entire universe to tremble. All living beings were trembling. A blood-stained tortoise shell floated in the space beyond the heavens. It was using its cold eyes to look down on all the living beings in the universe. The golden turtle ancestor felt that it was safe. It was time to solve its own problem. It was too serious. If it could not solve it quickly, it would be very troublesome. It would shake the foundation of his Daozu. Welcome, Senior. In the entire universe, a series of powerful beings rushed out and bowed to the blood-stained tortoise shell. Kiki, the golden turtle ancestor, laughed coldly. His body's declining chi and blood began to recover. With a thought, a terrifying god power covered the entire universe. It made the space between the heavens and the earth infinitely dark and gloomy. At the same time, the entire universe roared. With a thought from the golden turtle ancestor, hundreds of top-notch ancient cities above the origin of life exploded. In the process, all the living beings in the cities exploded. The most powerful beings were all turned into bloody light and scattered in the universe. Sacrifice. I need your life, energy, to recover. The golden turtle ancestor did not have any expression. He was cold and gloomy as he looked down at the origin of life. He needed vigorous life energy to recover his declining bodily functions. It was difficult to find a place in the void space for him to recover. In the eyes of the golden turtle ancestor, the entire universe was filled with ants. He had slaughtered all the ants in the universe and opened his mouth to swallow the life energy in the universe. But he was not satisfied. To him, the powerful beings in this universe were too weak. In the end, under the influence of his dissatisfaction, the entire universe trembled once more. This was the arrival of a bloody apocalypse. A terrifying turtle head loomed in the sky. As it spat, countless living beings exploded and turned into bloody light. What was purgatory on Earth? This was even more tragic than purgatory on Earth. Countless people died. Countless children died, leaving behind only old and frail people. Their turbid eyes trembled as they let out bestial roars one after another. Be *starred, my child. You be *starred, devil, in the blood-stained universe. All living beings cried out in grief. They let out heart-wrenching cries. The entire universe was bleeding. Countless living beings exploded and turned into chi and blood essence. It floated toward the golden turtle ancestor's mouth and nose. The golden turtle ancestor, laughed coldly as he looked at the miserable living beings. To him, these living beings were weak ants. He would not feel guilty even if he killed trillions of them. Too weak. At the same time, he was extremely dissatisfied. These living beings were too weak. Even if he destroyed this origin of life, he would not be able to recover much. In any case, he decided to find more origin of life to recover. Although some of the prosperous universes in the void space were related to some of the immortal sects in the immortal heavenly domain, who would know that he was the one who massacred them. Hence, I'll fulfill your wish. The curses that filled the world made the golden turtle ancestor angry. Just as he was about to open his mouth, his expression changed as he sensed a great danger approaching. In the distant world, roars exploded. It was as if gods and devils were dancing wildly. These words contained the wrath of the heavens, illuminating the outer space. One after another, powerful young gods of war charged toward the golden turtle ancestor. Chapter 1756. Su Yin was seething with anger. Killing intent surged in his eyes, tearing apart the void. His heart was burning with rage, and his eyes were wide open. The golden turtle had actually dared to slaughter an entire universe's life to recuperate. Its methods were so cruel that it made one's hair stand on end. Kill! The Baokai roared, and the world trembled. Its entire body surged with killing intent. It had seen vicious things before, but it had never seen such a vicious thing. The golden turtle had crossed its bottom line, sacrificing billions of lives to recuperate. Since ancient times, who had dared to do such a thing? Old bastard, give me your life. The old man roared, his entire body's holy power surging and erupting, drowning out the boundless world of nothingness. Even from a great distance away, he had already pushed his body's most powerful source of life towards the blood-stained universe, suppressed the golden turtle primogenitor. But the golden turtle's sixth sense was too strong. It was already on guard when the crisis struck. Without hesitation, it revived its strongest power and used the heaven-splitting technique to tear open a large crack in the void. Its blood-stained turtle body drilled into it, frantically fleeing for its life. Kill! The celestial court's young war gods roared. Each one of them was majestic, and their cold, killing intent leaked out. The blood-stained universe trembled, and all living beings wailed. Countless old people knelt on the ground, roaring with red eyes. This was a hysterical sound. The pain in their hearts was too great, and they were about to faint. In the end, Su Yin and the others had arrived too late. 60 to 70% of this life's origin had been slaughtered, and the remaining were mostly old people. This old bastard has lost his mind. We must get rid of him. Bamboo Moon's eyes were red, and she was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Who would have thought that this old turtle would be insane to such a degree? There was nothing left to say. They frantically chased after it, launching a chase in the boundless void. They would not give up until the golden turtle was killed. A bunch of ants. The golden turtle was furious. It pounced on the experts, chasing it from behind. The prehistoric big brother was not here, or else it would not have been able to escape just now. But the golden turtle didn't expect that it was Su Yin and the other young experts of the celestial court who were chasing after him. This was a great humiliation. He was once a supreme being who stood high above the masses, known as the world's most powerful expert. Unfortunately, he was heavily injured. Otherwise, how could the old leader of the Daozu domain, who had just advanced, kill him? The golden turtle primogenitor's heart was filled with grief and indignation. Its eyes were red as it crossed the void. It had to shake off these people, or else its injuries would become more and more serious. In the vast nothingness, a path of pursuit continued to expand. Along the way, they passed by a few sources of life, stirring up quite the disturbance. But the golden turtle progenitor didn't have a chance to attack again. He was being chased the entire time. It went without saying that Split the Heavens was so powerful that it could open spatial tiers for the golden turtle progenitor time and time again. Otherwise, the heavily injured golden turtle progenitor wouldn't have been able to run for long. Kill! The young experts of the celestial court let out battle cries as they ran through the void. For a long time, their losses were great. They were suppressed by the power of nothingness day and night. Even if they were golden immortals, it was difficult for them to hold on. But Baokai and the others had many great tonics on them. They could maintain their peak state for a long time. Time flew by, and a month passed. For a whole month, the golden turtle progenitor madly ran for a month, while Su Yin and the others chased after him for a month. The old leader and the others had the mentality of killing the golden turtle progenitor. The storm of pursuit didn't calm down at all. It had to be said that in this month, Baokai and the others had become a lot stronger. Each of them was surging with vitality, and their figures were blazing. They were like a group of powerful war kings, erupting in the void. It's a training ground. The old leader laughed. Relying on the belief in their hearts to kill the golden turtle progenitor, they're adventuring in the void. It's a good way to train them. Bunch of bastards, I want to see how much you can afford to waste. The golden turtle progenitor roared. Along the way, not only did he have to run for his life, he also had to face the curses of Tai Baokai. In short, he was too miserable. The most ancient creature of the undying heavenly domain could only run for his life. Time flew by, and another 2 months passed, the void was too magnificent. Suyin didn't know how far he had traveled. He felt like he was going to get lost in the void. This matter eventually spread to the undying heavenly domain and caused a great storm. A battleship that was exploring the void returned, and the scene it saw 2 months ago caused a great commotion. A group of young experts of the Celestial Court were chasing after the golden turtle progenitor. Counting the time it took to return from the battleship, it had already been half a year. Who knew if the golden turtle progenitor was dead or not? This matter shocked thousands of sections. At present, the young experts of the Celestial Court were already strong enough, and the supreme level was not far away. Would the Daozu progenitor be born in the next few hundred years? Half a year. Old turtle, you must be tired to death, right? Tai Baokai let out a long roar. His hairy hair glowed in golden light. He looked like an ancient supreme creature. His roar shook the sky. Grandpa Baokai is getting stronger and stronger. I can run for 10 days and 10 nights without taking a breath. Look at you. I'm a little tired. The little azure dragon wiped his saliva and said, I want to drink some turtle soup to replenish my life essence. What turtle soup? When the time comes, I'll put it in the furnace and refine it into a golden turtle pellet. It'll help me break through the Daozu progenitor level. Half a year really passed. The golden turtle progenitor had been running for half a year. He was so tired that he was bleeding all the way from his mouth and nose. Some cracks had appeared on his blood-stained turtle body. His vitality had declined to the extreme. He was too tired. It was easy to imagine what the golden turtle progenitor had gone through during this half a year of running. When he heard a series of contemptuous words from behind, the golden turtle progenitor was so angry that his soul was trembling. He let out a loud roar. The boundless void collapsed, and some star skeletons along the way exploded. The golden turtle progenitor was filled with grief and indignation. He wanted nothing more than to kill them all. I want to go back or I'll die here. An extremely crazy idea flashed through the golden turtle progenitor's mind. He wanted to return to the undying heavenly domain, to his nest. He believed that the nest's defense could temporarily stop them. As long as the golden turtle progenitor had enough time to recover, it would not be difficult to kill a newly ascended Daozu. I want to kill them all. Kill them all. The golden turtle progenitor was so angry that he was about to explode. As one of the most ancient life forms, he was forced to this extent. In short, the golden turtle progenitor's eyes were completely red. He had to return, or he would die of exhaustion. Wong. The blood-stained golden turtle exuded what little divine power it had left. With a rumble, the void was blasted open. This region also exploded with energy, forming a blurry universe black hole. Swoosh, swoosh. The old chief followed the golden turtle progenitor, relying on the 7-colored turtle shell to constantly lock onto its tracks as they traversed through the void. This time, they traversed a bit far. Along the way, the old chief did not release his aura to protect Bamboo Moon and the rest, allowing them to endure the attacks of the void storm and the terrifying suppression of the void energy. During the process, each and every one of their bodies blazed and surged, releasing an even more terrifying life force amidst the suppression of the void, surging and burning violently. One had to admit that this kind of cruel tempering was extremely dangerous, but at the same time, it was also a great help. In Suyan's Heaven's Burial Cave, the universe medicinal soil planted countless wondrous herbs, which also played a great role. In this half a year's time, they relied on this huge amount of resources to improve at lightning speed. The old chief was astonished as he stared at Suyan. At the same time, Baokai and the rest felt an incomparably oppressive aura, causing them to be unable to breathe. What's going on? They looked at Suyan. The source of the aura originated from him. At this moment, Suyan's figure was infinitely brilliant and looked somewhat terrifying. He took a step forward in the void, and with every step, his figure became more majestic. After taking a total of 9 steps, Suyan's aura erupted completely, as though he was standing at the end of the world, standing at the limit of the immortal realm. In an instant, he changed. He was very majestic, and his figure emitted endless radiance, accompanied by the chanting of the Mother Sutra. Su Yin can't be about to break through to the Daozu realm, right? Bao Kai was shocked. Su Yin had only ascended to the grand heavenly realm for a few years. Would a sudden breakthrough cause his foundation to be unstable? In short, the current Su Yin was somewhat terrifying. His head was the firmament, and his feet were stepping on the wilderness. Heaven and earth trembled along with him, and the unparalleled potential in his figure was revived, turning into an ancient and mysterious universe that bore the weight of the sun and moon. This was also accompanied by a terrifying aura that spread, sweeping across the vast dark world and illuminating heaven and earth. It was so resplendent that it was as though a holy realm was opening, and there were billions of strands of auspicious light. Roar! Su Yin let out a long roar, and heaven and earth were changing. His Tao and skills were spreading, and a terrifying figure appeared behind him. It was as though a huge life form was born, and its head was above the firmament, looking down at the starry sky. Daozu, he's breaking through to the Daozu realm? Bao Kai was shocked. He felt Daozu's heavenly might. This huge life form was Su Yan's Dharma world, and it filled the vast world. It was like a majestic giant looking down on the universe and controlling the immortal realm. The old leader was also shocked. Shouldn't Su Yin be breaking through to the Supreme Being realm? But he seemed to have surpassed the Supreme Being realm and was breaking through to the Daozu realm. After all, who could do such a terrifying life force other than Daozu? But the old leader knew that Su Yin wasn't a supreme being at all. He was still in the golden immortal realm, but now the commotion of breaking through was too great. Who would dare to believe that he was breaking through to the supreme being realm? In heaven and earth, only I am supreme. Su Yin roared, and his long black hair danced like a waterfall. This was the belief of being invincible in the world, and it was going to swallow the river of time. He controlled heaven and earth and respected himself. Billions of strands of energy waves rippled, as though they came from prehistoric times. His ancient physique was endlessly strengthened, and it emitted endless brilliance that buried the heavens and buried the golden age. An even more terrifying aura spread, and Su Yan's figure and the Dharma idol behind him merged into one. In an instant, his terrifying power overflowed, and his magic power was like the sea, drowning the vast world of nothingness. There is also a great divine might that spread to the distant world. The ancestor of the golden turtle, who had already escaped far away, roared angrily. He felt that there was a terrifying life force pressing down on him, and it wanted to suppress him.